Shalom Israel, Most High in Christ, blessed Sabbath to you. My name is Brother Zerubbabel,
My name is Ezra Elazar.
and we are children of Israel. We are back once again. Blessed Sabbath to you. Uh, bring out another lesson. We're going to continue on with the series of lessons that we've been doing, dealing with the warning of beware of all unrighteousness, going through the list of sins that the scriptures list as belonging, to unrighteousness, showing you what unrighteousness is, what sin is. There's a whole list of sins that are listed in the scriptures that fall under that category. Okay. And so we're just going through and going, through the list one by one and breaking them down so that way you can know exactly what that sin is or what that particular I guess you could say piece of unrighteousness or lack of a better word, what it is. Once you can recognize it within yourself, then you know how to deal with it. Okay. The first thing is self-recognition, being self-aware and knowing when you know you're caught up in sin. That's why the scriptures tells us to examine ourselves. That's what we should be doing on a daily basis. We should be, taking a look in the mirror and, seeing whether or not we're actually walking the walk and talking the talk. Give me 1 second. We have to see if we're actually walking the way we're supposed to. All right. Real quick, grab 2 Corinthians 13:5.
The book of Second Corinthians, yeah, chapter 13 and verse 5. Examine yourselves whether ye be in the faith. Prove your own selves. Know ye not your own selves how that Jesus Christ is in you, except ye be reprobate.
All right. So the scriptures clearly tell us to examine ourselves. We have to constantly be taking that look in the mirror and looking at ourselves and determining whether or not we are actually walking in the faith or not. Are we actually keeping the commandments? Are we actually doing the will of the Most High? Or are we doing our own will? Okay. Go to Sirach 18:20.
The book of Ecclesiasticus, chapter 18 and verse 20. Before judgment, examine thyself, and in the day of visitation thou shalt find mercy.
All right. So again, the Lord always repeats himself. He tells us the same thing over and over and over again in the scriptures. So here in Sirach 18:20, he's telling us before judgment, examine thyself. So don't wait until it's too late. All right, to take that self-examination. We bring this up all the time. What Christianity has taught us is that you can live a life of sin. You could be, just out there being rebellious, and then all of a sudden on your deathbed, you could call the local priest in, and he'll come to your bedside while you're in hospice or whatever, pray over you, and people think that because they've called the priest in, they've repented on their deathbed, that now, they're going to get the kingdom. That's not how it works. That is not how it works. And the scriptures clearly is telling us before judgment, examine yourself. Before the Lord brings that judgment down on you, put you in the hospital, bring that, uh, what do you want to call that, sickness, that that injury, whatever it is that causes you to end up in the hospital, causes you ultimately to end up um, falling to death, you want to make sure that you're examining yourself and getting yourself out of sin, repenting before it's too late. All right. Before the judgment comes down. All right. Before you end up in the hospital with that cancer, before you end up in that car accident, you know what I mean? Before you end up losing everything that you've worked hard for. Whatever judgment the Lord brings down on you, you want to make sure that you examine your walk, repent, and come back to the Lord before it's too late. Um, grab that. Is that in Proverbs 1? Um, I'm looking for Proverbs 1, and let me look for it.
20, 126.
Yeah, there you go. Because we bring
The
this
book
up
of
all
Proverbs.
the time. Go ahead.
The book of Proverbs, chapter 1 and verse 26. And I also will laugh at your calamity. I will mock when your fear cometh. When your fear cometh, as desolation and your destruction cometh as a whirlwind. When distress and anguish come upon you, then shall they call upon me, but I will not answer. They shall seek me early, but they shall not find me. For that they hated knowledge and did not choose the fear of the Lord. They will none of my counsel. They despise all my reproof. Therefore shall they eat of the fruit of their own way and fill with their own devices.
You can stop right
For-
there. All right. So the Lord is basically telling us, you're going to sit here and wait until the last minute. It's too late. You're sitting, you know what I mean? You're sitting in the hospital, dying of that cancer, um, dying of AIDS, dying of whatever plague he brings upon you. And now you think that you can now call upon the Lord and be like, Lord, Lord, please forgive me. Forgive me. That's not how it works. You're supposed to repent before judgment comes down on you, as we're reading in the scriptures. Sirach 18:20 again, before judgment, examine thyself, and in the day of visitation thou shalt find mercy. Waiting until, that last minute is not how this works. The Lord is saying, I also will laugh at your calamity. I will mock when your fear comes. So when you're sitting in that hospital room, we've brought this out several times. The Lord's sitting up there laughing at you. He's laughing. And it's not us saying it. He's telling us right here in his own words. I also will laugh at your calamity. I will mock when your fear cometh. When your fear cometh as desolation and your destruction cometh as a whirlwind, when distress and anguish cometh upon you, then shall they call upon me. That's what he's saying. Our people, they're going to wait until the last minute. They're going to wait until that fear and dread comes upon them and that fear of death is hitting them. Then you're going to call on him and beg him for forgiveness. And he says, but I will not answer. They shall seek me early, but they shall not find me. He's telling you it's too late. And Sirach 18 and 20 is also telling you it's too late. Before judgment, examine thyself, and in the day of visitation, thou shalt find mercy. You're only going to get that mercy if you repent far before the judgment comes. Because there are a lot of our people right now. We may have family members, co-workers that we know, friends you may know. I know I have family members that have gone through it. You know what I mean? And nobody could tell them anything. No matter how many times they're told, you know what, you need to stop doing it. You better knock it off. You better take a look in the mirror. Don't listen. And the next thing either they, some tragic accident or tragedy happens, you know what I mean? Or the worst, death ends up falling upon them. All right. So the Lord is he's warning us. Okay. And so we're bringing out these sins. We're showing you what the scriptures say about all unrighteousness to bring awareness to it, because you're not going to know what sins that you're involved in unless it's taught to you. You have no idea. All right. Where is that in Romans where he says, I had not known lust except the scripture said? Do you remember that side in Romans?
I mean,
Let me look it up.
Romans
Romans
7
7
7.
7. Yeah, there you go. It just popped up at the same time.
The book of Romans, chapter 7 and verse 7. What shall we say then? Is the law sin? God forbid. Nay, I had not known sin, but by the law, for I had not known lust, except the law had said, thou shalt not covet.
You see, so he's letting us know. How is he going to know what sin he's in unless the law tells you? You know what I mean? You're not going to know. You're not going to know that you're an envious person without the law telling you, thou shalt not covet. How would you know? You're just going to be living life like a lot of our people are doing out here in the world that don't know the commandments. They don't know the law, mainly because it hasn't been taught to us, been hidden from us. Through what? Through the guise of Christianity. So you have a lot of our people in this situation because they're being told that the law is sin. They're being told you don't have to keep the laws, you don't have to keep the commandments, even the Big Ten. So therefore, they're living a life of envy, jealousy, a life of hatred, having that murderous spirit on them. And they don't realize it, they don't recognize it because they don't know the law, they don't know the commandments. And so he's saying, nay, I had not known sin but by the law, for I had not known lust except the law had said, thou shalt not covet. So how are you going to know what sin is if you don't know the law? That's what we're getting at. So we're showing you through the scriptures, we're showing you through the law or by the law what it is. And only then can you look at yourself, take that self examination, recognize it within yourself, and repent. All right. So this brings us back again to what we always bring out at the beginning of all of our lessons, that our people need to be retaught. You've got to be retaught this Bible. All right. Because a lot of our people don't understand, even us when we came in, had no idea that the Bible actually explains to you what sin is. Had no idea at all. You know, that First John 3 and 4 tells you what sin is. You know what I mean? Most people coming out of the Christian church have no clue. You ask them, what is sin? And they'll look at you dumbfounded and be like, um, uh, well, and then sometimes they'll just flat out say, you know what? I don't know. You know what I mean? Grab it real quick. First John 3 and 4.
They love saying falling out of the mark, missing the mark, but it's like, what mark?
Yeah, yeah, there you go. That too. That you hear that too, yeah.
The book of First John, chapter 3 and verse 4. Whosoever committed sin transgresseth also the law, for sin is the transgression of the law.
For sin is the transgression of the law. So without the law, you wouldn't know what sin is. And that's the problem. Our people don't know that they're in sin when they're allowing these feelings to come upon them. All right. They're completely oblivious. That's why, you'll see some of our people, just wilding out, just going crazy, getting into arguments, getting into fights out there, just, just acting a fool. And you wonder, like, man, like, what is wrong with them? Why does it seem like this is just so normal to them? Because it is. They don't know any better. If you've grown up in an environment where this is normalized behavior, how would you know that it's not normal behavior unless somebody points it out to you through, through the scripture or through the law? All right. How would you know that running that red light is against the law unless somebody taught you the law out of the driver's handbook? That a red light means stop. How would you know? You wouldn't. How would you know that the yellow light means to slow down and prepare to stop? How would you know that the green light means to go? You know what I mean? How would you know that when the hand is showing in white, I mean in red, that means to prepare to stop? Or when the figure, with the person walking, it means to cross, means to go. You wouldn't know unless you read the driver's handbook and learned it through what? Through the law. All right. So that's what we're getting at. Our people need to be retaught because they don't know that they're in sin because they haven't been taught the law. All right. So let's go to Hebrews 5 and 12 through 14.
The book of Hebrews, chapter 5 and verse 12. For when for the time ye ought to be teachers, ye have need that one teach you again, which be the first principles of the oracles of God, and are become such as have need of milk and not of strong meat. For everyone that useth milk is unskillful in the word of righteousness, for he is a babe. But strong meat belongeth to them that are of full age, even those who by reason of use have their senses exercised to discern both good and evil.
All right. So a lot of our people think that having that envious spirit upon them is normal. And that's one of I would say that's probably the main problem in the Black and Hispanic and Native American neighborhoods. Okay, is that spirit of envy that we that that envy causes a whole list of problems. All right, which comes down to why we have so much what we call so-called black on black crime in the so-called Black and Hispanic communities. Can't stand to see your brother have anything nice. They get something nice, they want to start being envious. That envy starts turning into resentment. That resentment turns to hatred. That hatred then turns to violence. All right. And it's so common in our communities that it seems to be normal. People think it's a normal behavior because they haven't been taught that it's not a normal behavior. It's been normalized that you see that man walking over there with that gold chain on his neck. They envy it. They want to have it. All right. They covet it. And the next thing you know, they want to take it. All right. That all comes down to what? The spirit of envy. All right. Um, so what's happened is our people's senses have not been taught. They haven't been exercised. They haven't been given the tools that they need in order to use reason, in order to be able to um, think before they act. All right. They haven't been given the tools that they need to be able to discern the difference between good and evil. And that's what all of us are here for. All of us that are teaching, that's what we're here for. To give them the tools that they need to be able to, make that discernment. All right. Let's go to First Peter 2 and 2.
The book of First Peter, chapter 2 and verse 2. As newborn babes desire the sincere milk of the word, that ye may grow thereby.
So it's a two-way thing. We can't do it by ourselves. We need those that we're trying to reach to be able to humble themselves and be willing to learn also. All right. A teacher can teach all day long. wherever the case is, sitting behind the pew, you know what I mean, sitting in a classroom setting, whatever the case is, they'd be teaching until their hair falls out. Could, be wasting, you're not wasting years, but years can be going by until they're gray in the hair. And it's not going to help a student at all if the student is not willing to humble themselves and be willing to learn, have that desire to want to learn, have that desire to want to change. And again, that's come back to another one of the problems in our communities, that lack of wanting to change. People are comfortable in their skin, as they put it. They're comfortable being the way they are. America has made sin comfortable. You know what I mean? They've made it so pleasurable that that pleasure makes people feel comfortable. And in that comfort, why would you want to change? Because in your mind, it's normal. There's nothing wrong with you. They don't see the evil. They can't comprehend it because, like, I see people act like this every day. So why are you saying that this is evil? There's nothing wrong with me. That's the thought process that they have. But as the scripture says, as newborn babes desire the sincere milk of the word that you may grow thereby. You've got to become as a little child. You've got to want to revert back to that point in childhood where you didn't know anything before you even stepped into that preschool or that kindergarten class and started learning, where your mind was just void of any, you didn't know your ABCs yet. You haven't learned your one, two, threes yet. You see, what as a child, you were just ready and willing to learn whatever it is. They could have come and said that counting is not 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. That 10 is the lowest number, and 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. 1 is the highest number. 1,000 isn't the highest number. That's the lowest. They could have taught you completely backwards and had you thinking that 1 million is a lower number than 1. So now you're counting 1,999,999, 999,998, 999,000, having everything completely backwards. But as a kid, you would have accepted it. It's just been like, oh, okay. As a child, they could have just told you that the moon is the sun is the moon, and you would have been like, oh, okay. They could have said that the sky is pink, and you would have been like, no difference. Somebody, what color is the sky? The sky is pink. And then somebody says, no, the sky is blue. You no, it's not. It's pink. They told me. They taught it to me. So it's the same thing with these scriptures. You've got to be willing to become as a little child, but at the same time, you've got to be very aware of who you learn from, because you may find yourself in a position where you just might end up with a teacher that's telling you the sky is pink. You understand? You just might find yourself having a teacher that's teaching things completely backwards. All right. And what's happening in some cases is that people are coming in to this truth with their guards down, um, minds open and ready and willing to learn. And unfortunately, they're coming across some of the worst teachers in Israel, all right, that are just teaching such off the wall stuff that you got a lot of people out here confused now. There's a lot of confusion in the Israelite community now because of so many different doctrines being taught. It's no different than Christianity. where you've got so many different denominations of Christianity, and you can't even name them all. You got your Pentecost, you got your Methodist, you got your Baptist, you got your Jehovah's Wickedness, your Seventh Day Disadvantagist. You could go on and on and on through the list. What do they have? Your evangelicals. Okay. You could just keep going on and on and on down the list. And all of them are teaching pretty much different doctrines. The only thing that they somehow seem to agree on is that everyone can be saved. Jesus loves everybody. Blonde haired, blue eyed, Christ is the Savior. They all seem to agree all on that, but other than that, they're all teaching all kinds of different stuff. And that's what you're starting to see as this movement grows. The Israelite community is becoming more and more divided because there's so many different doctrines out there. All right. But but still, as a student, you still gotta be willing to come in and humble yourself and desire to learn. All right. And the main thing is also reading for yourself. Don't just take a man's word for it, because that's another issue in the Israelite community. People just listen to what somebody's teaching, don't go back and look at the scriptures for themselves. They don't go read. They're not reading, they're not studying. And next thing you know, years down the line, they end up waking up one day and going, oh, wait a minute. What in the world was, how did I let myself get caught up in this? All right. So just keep that in mind. Okay. So we're going to get into the lesson. Beware of all unrighteousness. We're dealing with envy. All right. So we're going to go to, oh, I did this wrong. It's Sirach 1 and 26. Let me change. I put Sirach 12 and 6 somehow. Sirach 1 and 26. All right. There we go.
The book of Sirach, chapter 1 and verse 26. If thou desire wisdom, keep the commandments, and the Lord shall give her unto thee.
So we're starting with this. If thou desire wisdom, keep the commandments, and the Lord shall give her unto thee. So as we just showed you, when you come into this truth, you have to first be willing to learn. You've got to have that desire to learn. You've got to want to humble yourself, become as a little child, and be ready to just soak up all the wisdom, knowledge, and understanding that this book teaches. All right. And as we just read, if thou desire wisdom, if you really want it, the Lord's flat out telling us how to get it. Keep the commandments, and the Lord shall give her unto thee. It's not coming from me. It's not coming from Ezra. It's not coming from any other teacher in Israel, where we're just the tools. We're just the readers. We're just giving you the word, which is given to us by who? It's the Lord's word. It's not ours. It's the Lord's to give. Okay. And he's only going to give it to those who are keeping the commandments, only to those that are worthy of having. All right. So if you want wisdom, meaning desire, if thou desire wisdom, the Lord told you how to do it. Keep the commandments. It's that simple. All right. There's no secret word, no secret passage, no secret handshake. It's nothing secretive about it. It's openly right here in the scriptures what you got to do to attain wisdom. All right. Let's go to Sirach 6 and 37.
The book of Ecclesiasticus, chapter 6 and verse 37. Let thy mind be upon the ordinance of the Lord, and meditate continually in his commandments. He shall establish thine heart and give thee wisdom in thy own desire.
All right. So again, He's telling us, let your mind be on the ordinances of the Lord. He's telling us to meditate, continue. He tells us this in several different precepts, to meditate, continue on his commandments. All right. So that's what you should be doing on an everyday occurrence. Your mind should be on the ordinances, on the commandments of the Lord. You should be meditating, thinking about them daily. You know what I mean? Not just waiting until the Sabbath day to finally crack open your Bible and start to study. That's not what should be happening. But excuse me, but unfortunately, with the majority of the people that are coming into this truth, that's what's happening. People are not studying. And that's how people are being bamboozled. All right. So there's a lot of envy that goes on just with the Israelite community, from teachers towards other teachers, and then that trickles down to their subordinates under them in their camps. So now you've got the people under them in their camp hating this camp and this camp leader, and it all comes down to envy, which we're going to get into later on in the lesson, because that's exactly what happened to Christ. All right, that's that situation where the leaders in Israel, they hated Christ. Why? Because of envy. We're going to talk about it later on in the lesson. But that same spirit has not left Israel. It's still here. It's still lingering around. All right. It's still here plaguing us. This spirit of envy. And it's not helping us. It's hurting us. It's keeping us from getting the kingdom that we've been waiting for so long. All right. But again, let thy mind be upon the ordinances of the Lord, and meditate continually in his commandments. He shall establish thine heart and give thee wisdom at thine own desire. So when the Lord sees that you sincerely desire to learn and to know wisdom, he's going to give it to you. All right. He'll fill you with it. Let's go to Wisdom of Solomon 6. Wisdom of Solomon 6. And you're going to read verses 11 through 19.
The Book of Wisdom of Solomon, chapter 6, and verse 11. Wherefore set your affections upon my words, desire them, and ye shall be instructed. Wisdom is glorious and never fadeth away. Yeah, she is easily seen of them that love her, and found of such as seek her. She preventeth them that desire her, in making herself first known unto them. Whoso seeketh her early shall have no great travail, for he shall find her sitting at his door. To think therefore upon her is perfection of wisdom, and whoso watcheth for her shall quickly be without care. For she goeth about seeking such as are worthy of her, showeth herself favorably unto them in the ways, and meeteth them in every thought. For the very true beginning of her is the desire of this discipline, and the care of discipline is love. And love is keeping of her laws, and the giving heed unto her laws is the assurance of incorruption. And incorruption maketh us near unto God.
All right. So there's a lot to unlock here. All right. So we're going to focus on some of it. All right. So this starts out again, following what we've been saying in the other precepts that we brought out so far. Wherefore, set your affection upon my words. Basically, tell us the same thing we just read in Sirach 6 and 6:37. That let your mind be upon the ordinances of the Lord, meditate continually in his commandments. All right. So let's actually look up that word affection. Set your affection upon my words. So, affection, a gentle feeling of fondness or liking, fondness, love, liking, endearment, feeling, physical expressions of affection, the act or process of affecting or being affected, a condition or disease, a mental state and emotion. All right. So we would be dealing in this context with number one, a gentle feeling of fondness or liking. Let your fondness, let your love, let your liking, your endearment, your feelings be upon what? Upon his words is what he's telling us. All right. Let's see what Merriam Webster has to say. All right. Affection, a feeling of liking and caring for someone or something, tender attachment, fondness, a moderate feeling or emotion. 3A1, a bodily condition, a disease, malady, an attribute, partiality, prejudice, propensity, disposition, affectation, umlaut, okay, whatever that is, talking about using the grammar of the Celtic languages. I have no idea what that's talking about. But a feeling of liking and caring for someone or something, tender attachment, all right, a moderate feeling or emotion. So that's basically what he's telling us. He's telling us to let our tender attachments, let our moderate feelings and emotions be upon his words. All right. He's telling us to desire them and we'll be instructed. All right. So you have to set your affection upon his word. Let me stop sharing this real quick, go back to the scriptures. Let's go to Colossians chapter 3 and verse 1.
The book of Colossians, chapter 3 and verse 1. If ye then be risen with Christ, seek those things which are above, where Christ sitteth on the right hand of God.
Oh, read verse 2 also, 3, 1, and 2. I'm sorry.
Verse 2. Set your affection on things above, not on things on the earth.
All right. So basically, it's just falling in line with what we just read. He says, if ye then be risen with Christ, seek those things which are above, where Christ sitteth on the right hand of God. All right. So again, if you've repented, you've been born again, you've been risen with Christ, he's telling us to seek those things which are above. All right. Set your affection on things above, not on things on the earth. And we've gone through and showed you other precepts, where we've been told not to set our treasures on things of the world, to set our treasures upon what? Upon the commandments of the Lord. All right. I believe that's Sirach 29:11. Grab that real quick. It popped in my head right.
The book of Ecclesiastes, chapter 29 and verse 11. Lay up the treasures according to the commandment
Lay up thy treasures according to the commandments. So he's
of the
telling
Most High.
of the Most High.
Hold on.
So he's telling us the same thing over and over again. Set your affection on things above, not on things of the earth. All right. Just like in 1 John 2:15, I believe. Grab that real quick. Love not the world, neither the things that are in the world.
The book of First John, chapter 2 and verse 15. Love not the world, neither the things that are in the world. If any man love the world, they love The love of the Father is not in him.
The love of the Father is not in him. All right. So we've got to keep this in mind that the Lord is telling us the same thing over and over and over and over again. Set your affection on things above, not on things on the earth. Because if our affections are solely on the things of the earth, the things of the world, that's where we allow things like envy, jealousy, covetousness to be able to creep into our spirit and basically consume us. Okay. So we've got to be very careful of that. Okay. And there's nothing wrong with having a desire to have nice things, because the Lord, even in the Old Testament, told Israel over and over, if you keep my commandments, he would give us the things that we desire. It would be no problem. The problem is when you allow these things to consume you so much to the point to where those earthly possessions become your idol, where they become your God, where you're so focused on them, so much meditating on them, they consume your thoughts, your whole being, you know what I mean? That now it's become your idol. That's all you think about. That's all you care about. That's where it takes a turn. That's where it starts to become sin. All right. That's where iniquity comes in. So we got to listen to what the Lord is telling us. Again, Colossians 3:1. If ye then be risen with Christ, seek those things which are above, where Christ sitteth on the right hand of God. Set your affection on things above, not on things on the earth. Okay. Let's go to, or actually, hold on. Yeah, I wanted to let's go to stay in Colossians 3. Read verses 3 through 5, because this is basically telling us what the opposite of affection is. All right. Because we just read in verse 2, set your affection on things above, not on things of the earth. But now he's going to tell us what those things are that are the opposite of our affections. All right. Go ahead.
The book of Colossians, chapter 3, and verse 1. If ye then be risen with Christ, seek those things which are above, where Christ sitteth on the right hand of God. Set your affections on things above, not on things on the earth. For ye are dead, and your life is hid with Christ in God. When Christ, who is our life, shall appear, then shall ye also appear with him in glory. Mortify therefore your members which are upon the earth, fornication, uncleanness, inordinate affection, evil concupiscence, and covetousness, which are idolatry.
All right. So he's telling us right here in the same passage the things that are opposite of the affections that the Lord wants us to have towards him, because there are affections that are opposite, as we just read about. All right. One of them being inordinate affection. Let's look that up too. Inordinate affection. Inordinate. Let me stop here. Send, share, share. I wish it would let us be able to split the screen and have the scriptures up there at the same time as you're looking up the
Oh, yeah.
definition, so that way you don't have to keep going back and forth. I wonder, is there a way to do it? All right, so what do we have here? Inordinate affection. It says inordinate affection refers to excessive, misdirected or disordered love or desire that prioritizes personal passions over moral or spiritual principles. So again, that's when things start to take in turn. when your desires for something become so great that it encompasses, your love of God, your love of the scriptures, your love of his word, the love of his commandments, all right, and the keeping of his commandments, all right. So it says inordinate affection is a term used to describe love or desire that exceeds reasonable limits, becoming obsessive, controlling, or idolatrous. It often involves attachments to people, possessions, ambitions, or pleasures that distract from spiritual or ethical priorities, leading to unhealthy or sinful behavior. Oh, it even lists here Colossians 3 and 5. Surprise. The word inordinate itself means disorderly, unregulated, immoderate, or excessive, highlighting the imbalance in such affections. So when it's telling us about those inordinate affections, it's telling us those things that we may do that are disorderly, those things that are unregulated, those things that are immoderate or excessive. Okay, and our people, all four of these words um, clearly um, define, that how our people conduct themselves, or define the conduct of our people. You go into the so-called Black, Hispanic, and Native American communities, you see a lot of disorder. You see a lot of things that go unregulated. You see a lot of immoderate, speech and immoderate clothing. You know what I mean? There's nothing done in moderation. Drinking, smoking weed, drugs, all of it. Everything's done what? In excess. Everything. The partying, the drinking, the alcohol, sex, drugs, all of it. It's all done in excess. All right. And now we're finding out that even in the midst of the Israelite community, that there are people that are in the midst of the Israelite community, even as leaders and teachers, that still haven't let these things go that we just read about in Colossians 3 and 4. I mean, 3 and 5. Mortify therefore your members which are upon the earth: fornication, uncleanness, inordinate affection, evil concupiscence, and covetousness. You see many of the leaders in Israel still holding on to a lot of these earthly, worldly, what do you want to call them? Actions, sins, which the Lord is telling us this is idolatry. Okay. When these things consume your mind, when they consume your spirit, they become your idols. All right. All right. So a good way to I'm trying to find a good way to explain it with the inordinate affection. Um, I guess a good way to say it is our passions, desires that can lead you or take you away from righteous living. That's a good way you could put it. All right. Leads us to what? Attachment, excessive attachments to like people, your possessions, your ambitions, pleasures, all of those things. All right. Um, and ultimately leads to down a path to idolatry, is what the scriptures is showing us. All right. Um, those inordinate affections that we just read about in Colossians 3 and 5 uh, can manifest into like excessive love. You have people that become infatuated with a man, infatuated with a woman, or it could be men and women. You have people that are so infatuated that, they're just consumed by, going from woman to woman to woman to woman to woman, or man to man to man to man. All right. Excessive cravings for food. You have some of our people that, are gluttonous, and they just can't stop themselves from eating food. All right. Um, and the main thing is not letting these things dominate our thoughts and our actions. Okay. as he's telling us, set your affection on things above. He's trying to teach us that it's the things that consume our minds that drives us either to righteousness or unrighteousness. Okay. All right. So going back to Wisdom of Solomon 6 and 11, Solomon 6 and 11. Let me stop sharing that and go back to the scripture so you can see it. Hmm. Is it back up yet? There we go. All right. So going back to this, all right, verse 11 again. Wherefore set your affection upon my words, desire them, and ye shall be instructed. There goes that word desire again. It says, wisdom is glorious and never fadeth away. Yea, she is easily seen of them that love her, and found of such as seek her. She prevented them that desire her in making herself first known unto them. What does she prevent them from? She prevents them from falling into sin. Those that desire discipline, those that desire wisdom, when you have that wisdom within you, it's going to prevent you from falling into sin, because now you know the law, you know the commandments, you know what to look for when you take that self-examination, which clearly lets you know what's wrong with you, clearly lets you know what you need to do to change it. Okay. And the ultimate change is what? Repentance. Okay. So as it says, she prevented them that desire her, and making herself first known unto them. Whoso seeketh her early shall have no great travail, for he shall find her sitting at his doors. To think therefore upon her is perfection of wisdom, and whoso watcheth for her shall quickly be without care. So basically, thinking upon wisdom, constantly meditating on the word, constantly enduring temptations, that's what's gonna fill you with what? With wisdom, knowledge, and understanding of the word. It says, for she goeth about seeking such as are worthy of her. That's the question you got to ask yourself. Are you worthy? Or what is it that makes you worthy of her? That's the question. Remember, we answered that question already in Sirach 1 and 26. If thou desire wisdom, keep the commandments. That's what's going to make you worthy of having her, is by keeping the commandments. All right. In verse 17, which says, for the true beginning of her is the desire of discipline. Discipline, and the care of discipline is love. And love is the keeping of her laws, and the giving heed unto her laws is the assurance of incorruption, and incorruption maketh us near unto God. All right. So let's look up discipline. See, I keep having to go back and forth. I'm gonna have to mess around with this one day and see.
Mm-hmm.
And see if there's a way to be able to do that. Discipline. Oops. Discipline. What is it? The practice of training people to obey rules or a code of behavior, using punishment to correct disobedience. That's discipline, control, regulation, direction, order, authority, rule. But at the same time, again, you got to be real careful against those that will take this and take it to the extreme and try and use it to 100% completely dominate and control people through the use of discipline, through the use of this Bible, through the use of the laws, commandments, and judgments in here. There are people that are using and abusing it, and we're not supposed to be doing that. All right. Let's go to Merriam-Webster, see what Merriam-Webster has to say. Discipline. 1A. Again, this is the one you got to really look out for when you come into this truth. You're looking for a group to maybe join, a leader to maybe learn from. Okay. You got to be real careful. As it says, control gained by enforcing obedience or order. Sometimes people, you know what I mean? Some men, have that spirit upon them that they love being the center of attention. They have that narcissistic tendency to just want to control people. They, you know what I mean? They want to be a leader so that they can dominate others. You know what I mean? Just to have other people under their control. Again, control gained by enforcing obedience or order, behavior in accordance with rules, orderly conduct. That's what we're looking for also in the context of what's written here. Behavior in accordance with rules, orderly conduct. That's the discipline we want. That's the discipline that we should be desiring. Behavior in accordance with what rules? The law, statutes, commandments, and judgments of the Lord. Following his laws and commandments. All right. That's what we're using in order to discipline ourselves. Okay. Self-control, punishment, an activity that one engages in regularly to train or improve. The learning of the laws, the keeping of the commandments, the keeping of the law. That's discipline. All right. A subject that is taught, a field of study. And again, the study of the scriptures, the study of the Bible, it's a field of study. A rule or system of rules governing conduct or activity. That's what this Bible is for us. For you so-called Blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans, this Bible is your heritage. Your heritage is what? Those things that the Lord gave us. He gave us land. He gave us a language. He gave us his law, statutes, commandments, and judgments as a rule or system in order for us to rule and govern ourselves, for us to be able to conduct ourselves in a righteous manner. That's why it was given to us. All right. Instruction. He gave it to us as a set of instructions. Discipline is a verb, to punish or penalize as a means of enforcing obedience and perfecting moral character. Exactly. That's the reason why he gave it to us. All right. Is that 23:24? Sirach 22. No, it's 24:23. All right, grab Sirach 24:23.
The book of Ecclesiasticus, chapter 24 and verse 23. All these things are the book of the covenant of the Most High God, even the law which Moses commanded for an heritage
24:23.
on 24:23. Sirach 24:23.
Yeah, yeah, that's it. You're reading it right.
Uh,
I just got to
all
turn
these
my
things,
speaker down. It seemed like it's coming out real loud. Go ahead and
all right.
read one more time.
All these things are the book of the covenant of the Most High God, even the law which Moses commanded for an heritage unto the congregation of Jacob.
All right. So he gave us this as a heritage. Okay. So all of this is to what? To bring about discipline within the Israelite communities so that we know how to conduct ourselves amongst one another. Okay. Let's go back to the scriptures again. Share. All right. So we must have that desire to want to have discipline. So once again, as it says here in Wisdom of Solomon 6 and 17, for the very true beginning of her is desire of wisdom, of discipline, is the desire of discipline. And the care of discipline is love. And love is the keeping of her laws. And the giving heed unto her laws is the assurance of incorruption. And incorruption maketh us near unto God. All right. Grab Sirach 18:13.
The book of Ecclesiasticus, chapter 18 and verse 13. The mercy of a man is towards his neighbor, but the mercy of the Lord is upon all flesh. He reproveth and nourisheth and teacheth and bringeth again as a shepherd his flock.
All right. So we have to remember that the mercy of man is toward his neighbor. How are you going to know how to have mercy to your neighbor if you don't know the laws and commandments? Okay, but as it says, with the mercy of the Lord is upon all flesh. He reproveth and nurtureth and teacheth and bringeth again as a shepherd his flock. That's why he left us this word. Read verse 14.
Verse 14,
Mm-hmm.
it says, um, He had mercy on them that receive discipline and that diligently seek after his judgment.
He hath mercy on them that receive discipline and that diligently seek after his judgments. So again, discipline is a very important component in this walk. Okay. You have to be willing and ready to receive discipline. You've got to desire discipline. All right. As it says, he hath mercy on them that receive discipline. The Lord's not dealing with people that are undisciplined. He's not dealing with people that are unruly and lack self-control and self-awareness. The Lord is not dealing with that. All right. Next, go to Sirach 23 and 7.
The book of Ecclesiasticus, chapter 23 and verse 7. Hear, O ye children, the discipline of the mouth, he that keepeth it shall never be taken in his lips.
Hear, O ye children, the discipline of the mouth, he that keepeth it shall never be taken in his lips. Because not only do we have to learn how to control our actions or have discipline when it comes to our actions, we also have to understand that we have to learn how to control the things that come out of our mouths, the things that we say. We've got to learn how to discipline our speech. There are some of our brothers in this truth that may disagree, but when I read the scriptures, I keep reading the same thing over and over and over again. The Lord is not happy with our people walking. You hear all throughout society now, almost everywhere you go, people just blatantly using all kinds of profanity. Teachers are openly using it in classroom settings now. You've got politicians on TV now just openly without thought, just blatantly using all kinds of profanity. You've got athletes giving interviews using all kinds of profanity in their interviews. Singers, rappers, movie stars, TV actors. It's in every facet of society now. You could go into a fast food joint and listen to the workers talking amongst themselves. And what you hear is basically like they're standing out in the streets talking to each other, like they're hanging out on the block, just, talking to their homeboys, talking to the homegirls, hearing all kinds of profanity coming out of their mouths. People have lost that discipline of the mouth, and especially in the Israelite community, because now you got people on YouTube, people standing out in the streets teaching this Bible and using all kinds of profanity, and then to justify it, we'll go into the Bible, say the Bible uses that word. Just because the Bible is using it doesn't mean that he expects us to be out there on the streets using all that profane language to teach, because you're not showing yourself the discipline, or showing yourself to be an Israelite that's full of discipline. You're showing yourself to be an undisciplined Israelite. You should be able to teach without having to use foul language. All right? You should be able to do it. But it's not like there's people that will disagree. But the problem is, reading here in the scriptures, hear, O ye children, the discipline of the mouth. He that keepeth it shall never be taken in his lips. The sinner shall be left in his foolishness. Both the evil speaker and the proud shall fall thereby. So I don't know about you, but when I hear some of our brothers on here calling other camp leaders a B, you know what I mean? Calling our women HOEs, using all kinds of foul language. Sounds evil to me. What do you think, Ezra? Does that not sound evil when you
Yep.
hear it?
Yep.
So he's saying
Yeah.
both the evil speaker and the proud shall fall thereby. So I'm trying to understand, like, how do some of our brothers read the Bible and think that it's okay to be out there using that kind of language when they teach? Read verse 9.
Verse 9. It says, accustom not thy mouth to swearing, neither use thyself to the naming of the Holy One.
All right. So some people try and say, oh, well, it's not talking about that kind of swearing. It's like, no, yes, it is. All right. And we brought this out before. Let me see. Go to Matthew 26 and read verses 70. Start at verse 69, 26 and 69 through 74. Actually, through 75.
Okay.
26 and 69 through 75.
The book of Matthew, chapter 26 and verse 69. Now Peter sat without in the place, and a damsel came unto him, saying, thou also was with Jesus of Galilee. But he denied before them all, saying, I know not what thou sayest. And when he was gone out into the porch, another maid saw him and said unto them, that were there, this fellow was also with Jesus of Nazareth. And again, he denied with an oath, I do not know the man. And after a while came unto him they that stood by and said to Peter, surely thou also art one of them, for thy speech bewrayeth thee. Then began he to curse and to swear, saying, I know not the man. Immediately the cock crew. And Peter remembered the words of Jesus, which said unto him, before the cock crow, thou shalt deny me thrice. And he went out and wept bitterly.
All right. So when it says he began to curse and to swear, said, I know not the man. I when I read that, I can just hear it in my head. Imagine one of our brothers today. You know what I mean? That's how he was acting. Nigga, I don't know that nigga. You know what you talking about. I don't know him. He began to curse and to swear. So the Bible does talk about cursing and swearing in that context. Okay. So I put that on my mama. I don't know him. Okay. So we've got to keep that in mind. All right. Uh, where were we at before that? Sirach 23:7.
Mhm.
We go back to it. Sirach 23:7. All right. So again, hear, O ye children, the discipline of the mouth. He that keepeth it shall never be taken in his lips. The sinner shall be left in his foolishness. Both the evil speaker and the proud shall fall thereby. Accustom not thy mouth to swearing, neither use thyself to the naming of the Holy One. All right. And you got to be careful of the things you say, because envy can manifest itself in your speech, the things that you say. And that's one of the clearest ways you can come to understand if somebody is envious of you, somebody that holds that spirit of envy within them, is by the things that they say, the things that they may say about a person, that they may talk about a person. Those little backhanded sly remarks, those little microaggressive comments that they may make about a person. It all comes out in your speech. All right. And without discipline, you are, and you have that spirit of envy in you. It's gonna become real clear to people. It's gonna manifest itself. All right. Let's go to Sirach 32:14. Read Sirach 32:14 through 17.
The book of Ecclesiasticus, chapter 32 and verse 14. Whoso feareth the Lord will receive his discipline, and they that seek him early shall find favor. He that seeketh the law shall be filled therewith, but the hypocrite will be offended thereat. They that fear the Lord shall find judgment, and shall kindle justice as a light. A sinful man will not be reproved, but findeth an excuse according to his will.
A sinful man will not be reproved, but findeth an excuse according to his will. And that becomes very clear when you have people in this walk that claim to be an Israelite, that claim to know that they're an Israelite, to claim that that they're keeping the commandments of the Lord, but yet when they're found and caught up in sin, somebody points it out to them, and they say, you know what, I don't care what that elder says. I don't care what they can't tell me what to do. I don't care what he says. I'm going to do me. I'm going to do what I want to do. I don't care what kind of counsel they bring out. I don't want to hear it. They can't tell me nothing. Like, who are they? You got to watch out for that kind of spirit. Okay. As it says, whoso feareth the Lord will receive his discipline, and they that seek him early shall find favor. Because you can tell the measure of a man by his willingness. Is he willing to receive that discipline? Or when discipline comes about, is he running from it? Which one is it? You understand? You're going to be able to see the character of a person by whether or not they're actually willing to take on that discipline. Or when things start to get heavy and that discipline is coming upon them, are they going to run? He that seeketh the law shall be filled therewith, but the hypocrite will be offended thereat. You see, it's going to be people that it's describing that when they hear us say from the scriptures that the Lord is not with all this swearing and cursing and all this, abominable speech that people be using when they're teaching and out on the streets and things like that, those are the ones that are going to come against it. They're going to be offended. When you bring out that, no, we can't have multiple wives, those are the ones that get offended. All right. Again, whoso feareth the Lord will receive his discipline, and they that seek him early shall find favor. He that seeketh the law shall be filled therewith, but the hypocrite will be offended thereat. They that fear the Lord shall find judgment and shall kindle justice as a light. A sinful man will not be reproved, but findeth an excuse according to his will. All right. And that's what you're going to find is another one of those things in the Israelite community that plagues us. People that don't want to change. They hold that spirit of envy within them, and they don't want to get rid of it because they're comfortable being the way they are. All right. But we're not supposed to be comfortable being that way, if you understand what I mean by that. Okay. Um, so all of this goes back to Wisdom of Solomon 6 and 11 through 19. Let's go back there to Wisdom of Solomon. I'm sorry, Wisdom of Solomon 6 and 11 through 19. Go ahead and read it one more time.
The Book of Wisdom of Solomon, chapter 6 and verse 11. Wherefore set your affection upon my words, desire them, and ye shall be instructed. Wisdom is glorious, and never fadeth away. Yea, she is easily seen of them that love her, and found of such as seek her. She preventeth them that desire her, in making herself first known unto them. Whoso seeketh her early shall have no great travail, for he shall find her sitting at his doors. To think therefore upon her is perfection of wisdom, and whoso watcheth for her shall quickly be without care. For she goeth about seeking such as are worthy of her, showeth herself favorably unto them in the way, and meeteth them in every thought. For the very true beginning of her is the desire of discipline, and the care of discipline is love, and love is the keeping of her laws, and the giving heed unto her laws is the assurance of incorruption. And incorruption maketh us near unto God.
All right. So let's continue on with it. Let's add in 22 and 23. Read verses 22 and 23.
Verse 22. For wisdom, give me a second, hold on. As for wisdom, what she is and how she came up, I will tell you, and will not hide my and will not hide mysteries from you, but will seek her out from the beginning of her nativity, and bringing of her nativity, and bring the knowledge of her into light, and will not pass over the truth.
And verse 23.
Verse 23, neither will I go with consuming envy, for such a man shall have no fellowship with wisdom.
So let's read it one more time. So that way it's like real clear, both 22 and 23.
Right, right. Okay. Uh, as for wisdom, what she is and how she came up, I will tell you and will not hide my mysteries from you, but will seek her out from the beginning of her nativity and bring the knowledge of her into light and will not pass over the truth. Neither will I go with consuming envy, for such a man shall have no fellowship with wisdom.
All right. And as we had mentioned earlier, that spirit of envy, when it gets on a person, can consume you. All right. And the Lord is telling us, neither will I go with consuming envy, for such a man shall have no fellowship with wisdom. So, in other words, a person who's allowing themselves to be consumed with that spirit of envy, the Bible's telling us that they're not going to have any fellowship with wisdom. Wisdom's not going to enter into your spirit. It's not going to happen. All right. You can do all the studying you want, but if you have that spirit upon you, it's not, you know what I mean? You're not going to grow. Okay. So let's look up the definition of envy now. All right. Just give me a second again. Envy. Envy, a noun, a feeling of discontented or resented or resentful longing aroused by someone else's possessions, qualities, or luck. A feeling of discontented or resentful longing aroused by someone else's possessions, quality, or luck. Jealousy, covetousness, desire, resentment. All right. As a verb, desire to have a quality, possession, or other desirable attribute belonging to someone else. Begrudge or grudge. Okay. So that's that spirit of envy. All right. Somebody that just feels discontented or they're not content with the things that they have. They have that feeling of resentment towards somebody. All right. They're aroused by the possessions that someone else may have or the qualities they may have. All right. And you see that all throughout America. That's what American society is basically built upon. People hating others just because of the things that, the accomplishments they may have, accomplished in their life, the material possessions they may have, the job they may have, the amount of money they may make or have. Okay. And that goes to number one, verbs, desire to have a quality, possession, or other desirable attribute belonging to someone else. That's what we got to be careful of. This is what the Bible is warning us about when it comes to all unrighteousness and dealing with envy. Having that desire and that longing for something else, for something that belongs to others, or hating them because they have it. Because that's what ends up happening, is that envy ends up turning to resentment. As we just saw, one of the synonyms for envy is resentment. We'll click on resentment. Resentment, bitter indignation at having been treated unfairly. All right. Because that's what people start to believe, in their own mind. Man, how is it all the good things always happen to them? Man, that's unfair. It's unfair that, I got to work at Del Taco And, they're over here, living the high life. He's over there, he's an attorney. That's not fair. That's not, man, well, how did he get it so lucky? Or how did she get it so lucky? How did she become a nurse making all that money? That's that resentment. Life is unfair. Bitterness, indignation, irritation. All right. And you could just keep going. You click on bitterness. Sharpness of taste, lack of sweetness, anger and disappointment at being treated unfairly, resentment. All right. So going back to envy, let's see what Merriam-Webster has to say about envy. Can you see it?
Yes.
All right. Painful or resentful awareness of an advantage enjoyed by another, joined with the desire to possess the same advantage. Malice, an object of envious notice or feeling. To feel envy toward or on account of. Begrudge. To feel or show envy. Synonyms: jealousy, hatred, resentment. That's the other word that I wanted to get to. Let's click on hatred. So you see how this works. People that are full of envy, they become resentful. That resentment turns to hatred. Hey, what's going on? Come it's not. There we go. Hatred, extreme dislike or disgust. Hate, ill will or resentment that is usually mutual. Prejudice, hostility, or animosity. Synonyms of hatred: contempt, disdain, detestation, abomination. Hate, loathing, hostility, disgust, distaste, abhorrence, spite. All right. So now it just keeps progressing. And then eventually that hate can lead to violence. All right. In some way. Hate, intense hostility and aversion, usually deriving from fear, anger, or sense of injury. Extreme dislike or disgust. Antipathy, loathing, a systemic and especially politically exploited expression of hatred. An object of hatred. To feel extreme enmity toward, to regard with active hostility. To have a strong aversion to, find very distasteful. All right. So let's click on this, the enmity. To feel extreme enmity. Positive, active, and typically mutual hatred or ill will. All right. So you can see how this progresses. That's why we got to be real careful about when you have people around you. You have to understand what envy is. You got to be able to point it out, especially when you're around people that have that envious spirit on them. You could end up finding yourself in a situation that can be dangerous. All right. Again, we're going to read about that with Christ, because that's what Christ ended up having done to him. He was surrounded by people that envied him, and that envy turns to resentment. That resentment turned to hatred. That hatred eventually turned to what? Violence. To where they hated him so much that they wanted to see him die. They wanted to kill him. And there are people in this world that unfortunately can allow envy to progress to the point to where, somebody might even want to harm you. All right. You got to be real careful with that. Um, nah, I'm not gonna tell that story, or maybe I can if it helps somebody. I've told my wife the story before. I remember back in high school, it was my senior year. I had a very good friend of mine. He liked this girl, which was stupid. Um, she had basically outright told him that the only reason why she had just, went out with him was because she really liked me and used him to try and get to me. And when she told me that, I looked at her and I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, so you think that I'm going to do this to my best friend and go out with you after you told me you just used my best friend in order to get to me? You think I'm that kind of person? And she sat there looking real stupid. I didn't know that she had already told him the same thing. She had already told him. I thought and had hoped that she hadn't said anything to him like that. So that way there wouldn't be any conflict so that I can talk to him before, anything escalated. But she had already broke up with him and already told, you know what, I just used you to get to him and all of this, and broke up with him, and then came to me, told me. I had no idea. And yeah, I did. I completely turned her away because that wasn't me. That has never been me. I've never, even as a youngster in the world, that was taboo. Messing around with somebody that one of your friends dated or going out with them, it was just not something to do. But it was crazy because the next day I'm in class and I get a summons to the office. And I'm like, come in, they send the person with the note from the office, the office monitor, the students that they have working in the office, comes in, hands a note to the teacher. The teacher's like, hey, call my name out. Not trying to give my government name online. So I go down to the office, the principal, the vice principal, trying to think who else was in the office. And they're like, hey, is everything okay? And I'm looking at them like, yeah. Like, what's going on? They're like, you're sure? I'm like, yeah. They're like, so you're not having any problem? They mentioned my friend's name. And I'm like, no. Like, why? Like, what's going on? And they're like, you're sure there's nothing going on between you two that we need to know about? And I'm like, look, there's, as far as I know, there's nothing. Like, what is going on? And they're like, well, um, he got caught with the knife today at school. And when he was asked why he had it, he said that he brought it for protection because, he was upset because over some girl or something like that you supposedly stole from him and had threatened him and said that you were gonna beat him up, or because everybody knew that I was in martial arts and stuff. They knew, but they knew I couldn't, not to mess with me. But so I'm like, are you kidding me? And they're like, no, like he, somebody, I guess in PE class, it fell out of his pocket or something when he was changing, and went and told the PE teacher. PE teacher sent him to the office, took the, had the narcs, as they called them back then, come and take him to the office. And he got caught with his knife. He had took a knife to school and was planning on trying to harm me over this girl that I didn't touch. I didn't talk to. I completely turned her away. And it was all over what? It was over envy, which jealousy, of course. You find out something like that, as the scripture says, jealousy is the rage of a man. But luckily for me, he ended up getting caught. And that's, there's been many situations like that I could look back, that I know the Lord was protecting me even way before I came into this truth, that, things could have happened. But, like I said, I had told my wife about this a long time ago, and she was like, wow, like, are you still like, yeah. But again, you got to be real careful, when it comes to envy, when it comes to jealousy, especially when it comes to those people that are closest to you. You could find yourself in a situation that can become deadly real quick. And in some situations, you wouldn't even know it. You wouldn't even expect it. Something, this is the one person I would have never suspected would have let, the hatred and the anger get that much to the point that he would have thought about doing something like that to me. You know what I mean? So I learned a quick lesson from that, to where I'm glad that I learned early. Don't trust everybody. You know what I mean? So envy, again, that jealousy, is it there? Oh, it went off. What happened? All right, let me go back to the scripture. Give me a second. Share screen, bigger, window. All right. So going back to Wisdom of Solomon 6 and 22 through 23. So as it says, as for wisdom, what she is and how she came up, I will tell you, will not hide mysteries from you, but will seek her out from the beginning of her nativity and bring the knowledge of her into light, and will not pass over the truth. Neither will I go with consuming envy, for such a man shall have no fellowship with wisdom. All right. I know what I wanted to look up. That's what it is. I wanted to go to the Wikipedia definition of envy. Give me a second again. I'm sorry. So, Wikipedia. Let me stop this. Share, share, and there we go. All right. Let's go into Wikipedia. So, envy is an emotion which occurs when a person lacks another's quality, skill, achievement, or possession, and either desires it or wishes that the other lacked it. Envy can also refer to the wish for another person to lack something one already possesses, so as to remove the equality of possession between both parties. So, again, that's basically what American society is based upon, especially nowadays. It just really seems like uh, people will, in the way they put it in the YouTube verse, when you hear all these so-called influencers talk, um, they talk about wins. When you win, that's the worldly way of saying when you've been blessed. The Lord's, but instead of acknowledging that it's the Lord that blessed you, they use, when you get that win. When you get that win, don't tell everybody your wins. You can't trust everybody, which is right. They're giving good advice. But the thing is, again, they're taking the Lord out of the equation. All right. So in the world, they call it a win. In the scriptures, it's the blessings from the Lord. All right. So when people see others getting these blessings or these so-called wins in life in today's society, you can see that we're living in a time where resentment, envy, jealousy, hate is basically almost at an all-time high. as far as what we've seen in modern times, we already know how bad things have gotten in the past with our people, where other nations hated our people, envied our people so much to the point to where they slaughtered many of our people, which is still somewhat going on today, but nowhere on the scale of back then. But on the other hand, it's going to escalate to where it will get back to that point again and surpass it. All right. So don't allow yourself to rest on your laurels, because what we see happening right now is just the beginning, and it's going to escalate. All right. So that envy that you see going on in the world goes right to what we're reading right now. When a person lacks another's quality, their skill, their achievement, or possession, you see that in the rap music that our people are putting out, whether it's a male rapper or female rapper. They put out, they may win some awards, they may make some money, and then another rapper, gets envious of that. They're envious of their skill, their achievements, and now they want to try and go after them in what they call the diss tracks. All right. Um, American society breeds that, and it's starting with our people in the music we listen to, the movies we're watching, the TV shows that we're consuming. All right. And just in society, period. Okay. Um, you go into a neighborhood, um, one person in the neighborhood may do something to their home, whatever the case is. And then next thing you know, everybody in the neighborhood starts following suit, doing the same thing. Somebody may uh, get a new car, and the next thing you know, everybody else is getting a new car, a new roof. Everybody else got to get a new roof, a new fence. Everybody else has got to get a new fence. Sell their house to make the money off selling their. Everybody else has got to sell their house now. All right, that's envy. Okay, our and it's more rampant in the so-called Black and Hispanic communities. The only difference is that envy goes way further, to where that envy starts to become resentment. That resentment starts to become hate. You know what I mean? Like, man, look at him driving up and down the streets, think he all that because, or think she all that because they got that whatever kind of car it is. And then next thing you know, the wheels start spinning. They're trying to figure out, what, I'm gonna jack them. And wait till tonight. Wait till it's dark. Go to their house and just take the car. So now you got people in their own neighborhood going and stealing, cars from the people that live around them. Worse yet, if they do it while you're driving the car and do a carjacking. Wait till you stop at the stop sign, come jumping in the car with a hoodie and a mask on, with a pew pew in their hand, and carjacking. Break into your house. All right. If you've never had your house broken into, I've said it before, it's not a good feeling. I've had it happen on a couple of different occasions, and it's not a good feeling. It doesn't feel good at all. I can tell you, it is the worst feeling in the world to know that somebody came into your house and basically just invaded your private sanctuary. To know that somebody came in and had no respect, no regard for your things. You know what I mean? For your sanctuary. And then the thought of, what if they come back? That's the scariest part, because now you're on edge. You know what I mean? Like, man, what if they come back? You can't sleep at night. You know what I mean? And at that point, for myself, got to get out of here. Got to go. Got to go. Don't want to be feeling like this. All right. So, but that comes from what? From envy. People seeing someone else have something and wanting, letting their emotions get to the point to where they want to take it. All right. Let me see. Let's go here. It says Aristotle defined envy as pain at the sight of another's good fortune, stirred by those who have what we ought to have. Bertrand Russell said that envy was one of the most potent causes of unhappiness, which is actually true. When you look at American society, one of the major causes of unhappiness is people envying what other people have because they're not content with what they've got. It says the conditions under which envy occurs, how people deal with it, and whether it can inspire people to emulate those they envy remain as subjects of modern research. And it says jealousy differs from envy in that jealousy is usually focused on emotional relationships and the fear of losing them, and envy is focused on the desire for other people's things or situations. All right, so it's giving that contrast. All right, the difference between jealousy and envy. Basically, jealousy is having to deal more with your emotional um, relationships as far as dealing with, people. And envy is focused more on, things that those people, that other people may have, things, possessions, treasures. All right. Types of envy. Some languages, such as Dutch, distinguish between benign envy and malicious envy, pointing to the possibility that there are two subtypes of envy. Research shows that malicious envy is an unpleasant emotion that causes the envious person to want to bring down the better off even at their own cost, while benign envy involves recognition of others being better off, but causes the person to aspire to be as good. Benign envy is still a negative emotion in the sense that it feels unpleasant. And that's what you see mainly in the so-called Hispanic and Black communities. You see that benign envy where, especially like we were just talking about the rap music, okay, they're bringing off their music, they're winning awards, they're doing movies now. Now they're doing, they're breaking off into other businesses. Oh, now they got a clothing company. Now they've got, some of them are coming out with different types of alcohols or something like that they're investing in, or sports drinks, and you know what I mean. And the next rapper sees them doing it, and so that envy jumps on. They're like, you know what? That's what I want to do too. I'm going to do what he's doing. You saw that starting in the '90s. Um, First, you saw Easy E with Ruthless Records. Then you had uh, Lynch Mob. After Ice Cube left, he started Lynch Mob Records, and then came about with Death Row. You know what I mean? And then Bad Boy, and it started spreading. So as that envy jumped on some of the other rappers, they wanted to aspire to be like Easy E. They wanted to have their own record companies too. And then um, you had what was it that Jay-Z had? I remember you had Murder Inc. You had which wasn't Jay-Z. Jay-Z had Rockefeller, Rockefeller Records. And then I'm trying to remember what's his name that had the tank as their logo. I can't think of the name of the record company. But you can see where all these record companies started popping up, and then um, you had some of the rappers starting to break off into clothing companies. You have Rocawear. You had Apple Bottoms come out a little bit, later on, and then it started escalating from there. Um, Trying to think what else they got into, just all kinds of, you know what I mean. As time went on, they started getting more involved in other types of businesses, and the emulation. was, would come after it, where everybody else wanted to have what they have, is basically what it came down to. All right. That's that benign envy. All right. And as it says, according to researchers, benign envy can provide emulation, improvement motivation, positive thoughts about the other person, and admiration. This type of envy, if dealt with correctly, can positively affect a person's future by motivating them to be a better person and to succeed. And that's one of the problems with American society, is that American society deems a good person as somebody that got good grades, they went to college, they got a degree, they got a good job, they're making a lot of money, they bought a house in the suburbs, their kids are going to the best schools. Man, he's a good man, or she's a good person, she's a good woman. Oh, they're good people. But in reality, they're demons. Look at the lifestyles of the rich and famous of today. These people have all the money in the world, but yet people think they're good people. They're looked at as they're good people. Let me see if I can find some real quick. Just give me a second. Um, just give me a second. I'm looking for something. Hmm. I'm trying to find this quote. See, like, just give me a second. Hmm. Play. I don't know why you can never find the video. It pops up on YouTube all the time. The video of Mike Tyson when he's talking about, they asked him a question about, rich people being good people. And he was like, not all rich people are good people.
No.
Hmm. Let me see if this is it. Video unavailable. I wonder if they take that interview down. Let me see if it's this one. That's not it. Um, I think it was. Is it this one where he was on Joe Rogan? Just give me a second. Just give me a minute. Let me see if this. Give me a second. It's got a few more seconds. See if this is the one. I know it was in that interview with Joe Rogan. Let me see if this is it. I'm going to try one more thing. Otherwise, I will just have to forget about it. I believe it is the video he did with Joe Rogan. I just found the whole interview. I'm going to have to go through it and play it another time, see if I can find the quote. Let me get out of this and go back for press for time. But there, I know it was the Joe Rogan interview that he did. That he made this quote. Joe Rogan was talking about rich people being good people, and Tyson said, "Not all rich people are good people." And in the context of what they were talking about, it was a real. Let me go back. Present, share, share. Go back to the Wikipedia article. I'm gonna go through that interview later on today, and if I find it next time we do class, I'll just pop it on real quick at the beginning of the class. All right. So going back to the types of envy. Um, so we were here. Benign envy can provide emulation, improvement, motivation, positive thoughts about the other person, admiration. This type of envy, if dealt with correctly, can positively affect a person's future by motivating them to be a better person and to succeed. There is some discussion on whether the subtype should be seen as distinct forms of envy, as some argue that the action tendencies to damage someone else's position for malicious envy and to improve one's own position for benign envy are not part of how the emotion is defined, while others think action tendencies are an integral part of an emotion. Those who do not think subtypes of envy exist argue that the situation affects how envy leads to behavior, while those who do think subtypes exist think that the situation affects which subtype of envy is experienced. All right. Um, let's go on. Evolutionary role. It says, following Charles Darwin's 1859 book, Advancing the Theory of Evolution by Natural Selection, his 1872 work, The Expression of the Emotions in Man and Animals, advanced the theory that there has been an evolution of emotion which developed in animals for the survival value emotions offer. In 1998, neuroscientist Jacques Panksepp provided data demonstrating that mammalian species are equipped with brains capable of generating emotional experiences. Subsequent research in the behavioral sciences have provided insights into emotions such as envy and their impact on cognition and behavior. For example, consistent with envy being a motivation, empirical research shows that envy concentrates cognitive resources, focusing the subject's attention towards collecting information on the social target and enhancing the ability to recall such information. In primate research, Franz de Waal conducted long-term research demonstrating that chimpanzees, as well as distantly related primates, such as brown capuchin monkeys, have a finely honed sense of justice within their social group, and that the key emotion used to measure and regulate fair outcomes is envy. DeWall's research leads him to argue that without envy motivating our interest in making social comparisons, there would be no reason to care about fairness and justice. Based on a model, evolved response of those who are better off, Sinister has argued that envy increases support for economic redistribution. All right. Envy regarding possessions or status says often envy involves a motive to outdo or undo the rival's advantages. In part, this type of envy may be based on materialistic possessions rather than psychological states. Basically, people find themselves experiencing overwhelming emotion due to someone else owning or possessing desirable items that they do not. Feelings of envy in this situation would occur in the forms of emotional pain, a lack of self-worth, and a lowered self-esteem and well-being. In Old Money, Nelson W. Aldrich Jr. states, envy is integral and painful, a part of what animates human behavior in market societies, that many people have forgotten the full meaning of the word. And when you read about this, that brings back again, that's what American society is built upon. Remember, America is considered a so-called free market, all right? And in that free market format or market format, you've got to have envy as a key component in order to cause people to want to buy and sell. All right, it's a key component for it. People desiring to have what others have. That's what marketing is about. You know what I mean? Uh, Causing people to want to desire to have a certain product. All right, especially again in our communities. Um, with the Jordans, the Louis Vuitton, the Dolce and Gabbana, all these what do you want to call them? Expensive labeled items. A lady sees another woman with a Louis Vuitton bag, and what does she say? Like, oh man, I love her purse. She got a nice purse. I'm gonna see if I can find me one like that. That's a form of envy. It may seem um, innocent in her thoughts, but in reality, it is a form of envy. All right. Same thing with it drives me crazy to see men my age running around with Jordans on. I don't get it still. But you have grown men in their 40s and 50s going out, and in some cases you could tell some of these men don't have no reason to be out spending $200 on a pair of tennis shoes. You know what I mean? But it's happening in the so-called Black and Hispanic communities where some of these guys have 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 kids that they ain't paying no child support for, don't even see the kids, but yet they're still out running around wearing Jordans and trying to pick up on young women. You know what I mean? It's crazy. But again, that comes down to envy. Um, where are we at? It says, it is that a symptom of desire, which is why it flourishes in market societies, democracies of desire, they might be called, with money for ballots, stuffing permitted. But envy is more or less than desire. It begins with the almost frantic sense of emptiness inside oneself, as if the pump of one's heart were sucking on air. One has to be blind to perceive the emptiness, of course, but that's what envy is, a selective blindness. Invidia, Latin for envy, translates as non-sight, and Dante had the envious plodding along under cloaks of lead, their eyes sewn shut with lead and wire. What they are blind to is what they have, God-given and humanely nurtured in themselves, all right? So overcoming envy. It says envy may negatively affect the closeness and satisfaction of relationships. Overcoming envy might be similar to dealing with other negative emotions. Anger, resentment. Remember, we talked about those at the beginning of the lesson, that envy leads to resentment, that resentment leads to hatred, that hatred leads to anger, that anger can lead to what? To violence. All right. So it's going almost along that lines: negative emotions, anger, resentment, etc. Individuals experiencing anger often seek professional treatment, anger management, to help understand why they feel the way they do and how to cope. Subjects experiencing envy often have a skewed perception on how to achieve true happiness. By helping people to change these perceptions, they will be more able to understand the real meaning of fortune and satisfaction with what they do have. According to Lazarus, coping is an integral feature of the emotion process. There are very few theories that emphasize the coping process for emotions as compared to the information available concerning the emotion itself. He says there are numerous styles of coping, of which there has been a significant amount of research done. For example, avoidant versus approach. Coping with envy can be similar to coping with anger. The issue must be addressed cognitively in order to work through the emotion. And that goes back to what we were talking about earlier at the beginning of the lesson. You have to take that look in the mirror. You have to examine yourself, as the scriptures tells us. We pulled the scriptures earlier. Examine yourselves, whether you be in the faith. All right. You've got to be the one to be able to take that look in the mirror, take that self-examination daily, and see whether or not you're living in the faith. Are you somebody that's living along the lines of the will of the Lord and keeping the commandments? Or are you living according to the world and letting sins like envy consume you? All right. You've got to be the one to make that determination. You could have many people point it out to you, whether it be friends, family members. You could go to a therapist. The therapist could point it out to you. You could go to your priest, pastor, minister, whatever the case is, have them point it out to you. But it's not going to do you any good at all if you're not taking a look in the mirror yourself and saying, you know what? I do have that spirit of envy on me. I need to get rid of it. Well, like, what can I do? That's what it's going to take. If you don't recognize the spirit on you or within yourself, how can you change it? You're not going to have any desire to change. All right. All right. Let me read that part again. The issue must be addressed cognitively in order to work through the emotion. According to the research done by Salovey and Rodin, 1988, more effective strategies for reducing initial envy appear to be stimulus focused rather than self focused. Salovey and Rodin, 1988, also suggests self bolstering. Thinking about my good qualities may be an effective strategy for moderating these self deprecating thoughts and muting negative affective reaction. All right. Um, how much more we got? No, there's not that much more. All right. Overcoming benefits. All right. It says Russell believed that envy may be a driving force behind the movement. And are you seeing this or am I just reading?
You're just reading.
Why didn't you say something? Yeah. Oh,
I
how did you get? Are you in the room? All right. Hold on. Let me. Thought you guys could see it. Hold on. Now, can you see it?
Yes.
All right. The benefit. I'm sorry about that. I clicked on it, didn't take it. All right. Russell believed that envy may be a driving force behind the movement of economies and must be endured to achieve the keep up with the Joneses system. And that's what I was just talking about a second ago. In order to run a free market society, you've got to have emotions like envy driving the people. covetousness, envy, jealousy, in order to drive people to buy and sell. All right. As it says, keeping up with the Joneses system. Let's click on it. Let's see. Keeping up with the Joneses is an idiom in many parts of the English speaking world referring to the comparison of oneself to one's neighbor, where the neighbor serves as a benchmark for social class or the accumulation of material goods. Failure to keep up. Let's click on it real quick. Failure to keep up with the Joneses perceived as a demonstration of socioeconomic or cultural inferiority. The phrase was coined by a 1910s comic strip of the same name. I never knew that came from a comic strip. All right, the phrase originates with the comic strip Keeping Up with the Joneses, created by Arthur R. Popman. The strip ran until 1940, so I guess he started in 1913. So what did I say? Look at Mrs. Jones. She goes to matinees. She entertains. She wears wonderful clothes. She gets something out of life. You simply got to make more money. I'll ask the boss for a raise today, Clarice. Okay. So basically, when you look at this is um, basically a marketing strategy, is what it almost looks like, to start to get people into that mode of consumption. Um, Reading comics like this, and now they're going out, and you've got that spirit of envy on people, that spirit of wanting to keep up with the Joneses. People just going out and buying and buying. Was it 19? Let me look it up real quick. Um, which falls in line with that. When did the Great Depression begin? 1929. So that falls basically right in line with it. So the Great Depression started in 1929. So going back to this. All right. So going back, let me click back. So again, the benefits, because they're claiming that there's a benefit to envy. Yeah, there is a benefit to a society like this. It says Russell believed that envy may be a driving force behind the movement of economies and must be endured to achieve the keep up with the Joneses system. He believed this is what helps to maintain democracy as a system in which no one can achieve more than anyone else. Attended to, envy may inform a person about who they admire and what they want. Benign envy may lead a person to work harder to achieve more success. And think about that for a minute. Because I remember I always used to often wonder, like, why is it when these athletes get these new contracts, they go and it's like mandatory that they got to put out a press release about how much the contract is worth, how long the contract is for, you know what I mean? And it's like, why do they do that? Like, why, it's like, isn't that the athlete's personal business with the, you know what I mean, with the team? Why do they want that information out there? It's for that exact reason. In order to drive the society, you've got to keep that envy going, because now this athlete sees the contract that athlete got. Like, wait a minute, I'm a running back. He's a running back. He just got 25 million. I'm only over here making 5 million. What's going on? And now, you read about these contract disputes. You know what I mean? And the same thing in the music industry, the movie industry. It's the same thing. um, a person, you know what I mean, signs on to do a movie, and it's right there in, you know, in the, well, back then the newspaper, but it's right here online. Exactly how much money they're making, you know, on that movie. They're getting paid such and such dollar amount to make this movie. I always wonder, like, why do they do that? Like, what's the purpose behind it? When you win the lottery, what do they make people do when they win the lottery? In most states, it's mandatory that you've got to do the press rounds. You've got to do the interviews. So now everybody and their grandma knows that you won the lottery. There's only a few states where you get to stay and remain anonymous. But here in California and a lot of other states, most states, you've got it's got to be public. It's got to be public knowledge, which they know is dangerous because there are people out there apparently that openly go out, look up the, you know, on the lottery's website, I guess, where they list the winners of the lottery and get their names, look up their names, find their information, and then they have people showing up to their homes, knocking on their doors, begging for money. Long lost relatives that they hadn't heard from in years suddenly calling them on the phone, like, hey, you know, how you doing? I haven't heard from you in a long. Cousin so and so, uncle so and so, aunt so and so. Yeah, you know, life's going a little bit hard for me right now. You know, I was just wondering, since you know, you got all, you know, you just made those winnings. Can you help me out a little bit? But again, that's what it's for, is to focus on keeping up with the Joneses spirit going. All right. And of so-called free market or democracy. All right. It says benign envy may lead a person to work harder to achieve more success. This is the one we got to really look out for in adolescence, because this is when they first start pushing it, is in school. That envy, that jealousy, that's what Christmas is all about. Easter, all of, you know what I mean? All of these holidays as a kid. Valentine's Day, you don't want to, you know, in school, they make it so that you don't want to be that kid that doesn't receive any Valentine's cards. You don't want to be that kid coming back to school after Christmas vacation and all the other kids have gotten all kinds of cool Christmas presents and you're the only one sitting there and they're like, what'd you get? And like, oh, nothing. You didn't get anything. Like, no, we don't celebrate Christmas. You don't celebrate Christmas. And then, you know, you got schools now that are, you know, trying to make parents feel bad for not, you know, if they don't celebrate these holidays. The teachers trying to tell, actually, you know what, you mind telling you guys a story about having to deal with that with your kids?
On which one?
Well, about the teachers giving you guys a hard time with your kids at school not celebrating the holidays and stuff like that. You don't have
Yeah,
to. I don't know if you mind doing it if you know to help out.
the most of the teachers usually just kind of left it alone, but
Mhm.
there was one teacher that basically would be saying that it's irresponsible or bad parent or why do they do that, and just started questioning everything we were doing, which he wouldn't question any other belief out there. It just kind of happened that what we were doing, I guess he didn't like. I don't know what it was, but he was just openly out there saying that it was wrong and that we shouldn't be doing that.
And so, in other, if it was any Jehovah's Witness or any of those that don't celebrate holidays, they have no problem with it. But as soon as they find out, you know, it's the Israelites, they've got a problem
Right.
with it. All right.
Right.
And that, again, it goes back to American society that they push this. And on the kids at an early age, and it's done for a reason. Um, in adolescence, envy becomes apparent in children from an early stage, and adults, while equally susceptible to this emotion, demonstrate a higher level of proficiency in disguising it. Envy plays a significant role in the development of adolescence. Comparing oneself is a universal aspect of human nature. Comparison can be applied across many different subjects. Applications such as physical attributes, material possessions, or intellectual abilities can enable a tendency for comparisons against one another's own experiences. However, children are more likely to envy over material objects such as shoes, video games, high value mobile phones, etc. Children believe these material objects are correlated to their social status, and that's what it becomes in school. You know what I mean? I remember back in the day when I was in school, if you weren't wearing Jordans, you weren't wearing Guess jeans, you weren't, your parents weren't pulling up in front of the school in a BMW. You know what I mean? You didn't have that social status in school. You weren't an athlete. You weren't a cheerleader. You didn't have that social status. All right. It says social status has been found to have a strong connection with self esteem. And adolescent self esteem is very fragile during early years and is heavily impacted by peer opinion. If a child is comfortable with who they are and self confident, they are less likely to become envious of other material objects because they do not self identify with materials. Material objects are not the only things that adolescents become envious over. However, it is the most prevalent. All right. It says as children get older, they develop stronger non materialistic envy, such as activities, physical appearance, achievement, and popularity. Sometimes envious feelings are internalized in children, having a negative impact on their self esteem and cause feelings of inadequacy. A child's identity is formed during their early years. Identity development is considered the central task during adolescence. When children grow up understanding their identity, they are able to better define what their strengths and weaknesses are while comparing themselves to others. Comparison can have two outcomes. It can be healthy and aiding in self improvement, or it can be unhealthy and result in envy, which can develop into depression. This is why self exploration and identity development are critical in adolescent years. If a child is showing signs of unhealthy envy, it is best to teach the child productive ways to handle these emotions at an early age. It is much easier to teach a child how to control their emotions while they are young rather than allowing them to develop a habit that is hard to break when they are older. All right, even the scriptures tells that. Train up a child while they're young and they will not change when they get older. I'm paraphrasing. Um, Let me look that up real quick. I can't remember where it's at. Train up a child. Grab that real quick. Proverbs 22:6.
The book of Proverbs, chapter 22 and verse 6. Train up a child in the way he should go, and when he is old, he will not depart from it.
All right. So they understand the concept. The younger a child is, and you start teaching them things, the harder it'll be for them to change when they get older. It's going to be ingrained in them. All right. And when you think about this, let's think back on how American society has been shaped. Influence from TV shows, movies. Um, One TV show that pops in my comes to mind, the movie Family Ties, with Michael J. Fox back in the 80s. That was Michael J. Fox was a teenager going to high school, and he was very heavy into following the stock market, um, wanting to become a broker. You know what I mean? He wanted to become a broker. He was very heavily into follow Ronald Reagan and Reaganomics and all of that. That's what basically the whole premise of the show was. But it was really um, pushing on American society this what we're talking about right now. This keeping up with the Joneses status, free market society. All right. Um, let me see. Let me look up something again. Uh, all right. So I was going to see if I could find a clip of the show, but I believe right now, if you Pluto TV, they have it recurring episodes coming on there. They have a lot of different old shows from the '80s that play on there. Um, but I believe Family Ties is one of the shows that they have. But in the show, what they're pushing is the theory of capitalism onto people. All right, basically, America is a capitalistic society um, based on what consumerism, and the show was basically pushing that to the forefront. Okay, um, when you go back and you look at movies that came out during the '80s, um, what is one I could think of off the top of my head? You Can't Buy Me Love, or Can't Buy Me Love, or is it You Can't Buy Me Love? It was a movie that came out during the '80s. Let me look it up. Um, I don't remember if it's Can't Buy Me Love or You Can't Buy Me Love. I know it was a Beatles song, but yeah, the Beatles song is called Can't Buy Me Love. Yeah, the movie was called Can't Buy Me Love. All right. So in this movie right here, it's basically um, goes right in hand with what we're reading right here with American society. That in adolescence, he had, he and his friends, they were considered nerds. He wanted to be with the popular group. Um, the girl he had a crush on, she was a cheerleader. She hung out with the football players. And if you weren't a part of that group, you weren't of any kind of status or social status in the school. And so he had, he wanted to spend what was it, like $1,000 or something like that, or $1,200 on a telescope. The girl trying to impress her friends, her went into her mother's closet. Her mother told her not to wear a certain outfit to a party. She went in there, put it on, wore it anyway. It got stained by one of the football players. He was drinking some wine or something. It got dumped on her. I guess her mother, it was expensive outfit. Her mother had bought, it was like 1,000 something dollars. And so when she went back to the mall to try and exchange it before her mother could find out what happened, he went up and, instead of buying the telescope he was getting ready to buy, he saw her through the lens walking through the mall, going into the shop. So he went in, offered her the $1,000, that he was going to buy, spend on the telescope in order to rent her for a month to pretend like she was his girlfriend so that he can become part of the cool group. So what she did is, she changed the way he dressed, changed the way he walked and talked, you know what I mean? And he finally got accepted into that social group until, the truth came out that he had paid her, and then he fell back down in the group. But it has all of that in it. The going to the mall, the clothes, um, the social status, without the clothing. She drove a nice car. All her friends drove nice cars. Um, he was still riding a bike with his friends until his dad let him, use the station wagon. You know what I mean? It all, the movie basically, the premise behind the movie shows everything with what we just read about how American society constantly push this keeping up with the Joneses, this capitalism, this consumerism into people's minds. And it all comes down to what? To envy. He envied the jocks. He wanted to be around them because he saw that they had the girls, they had the nice cars, they had the popularity, they wore the nice clothes. All right. And things haven't changed. It's gotten worse. But the reason why I'm pointing it out is because that was back in the 80s when I was in high school. All right. And now here we are 30 some years later, and look at how much worse it's gotten in the schools with the social status. Kids wanting to be a part of the cool group so bad that they'll do just about anything, to attain it, just like he did. He was willing to spend money, his hard earned money. He spent, I guess, his whole summer mowing lawns or something like that in order to get the money just to be able to buy the telescope. And instead of buying the telescope, he wanted to end up using the money to try and rent her. All right. So, keep that in mind, especially when it comes to your kids, that, the Lord is not wanting us to um, be a part of these holidays for a reason, like Christmas, Valentine's Day, Easter, Halloween, because every single one of them is based off of what? Envy, that marketing. Okay, wanting you as a child to want what the other kids have. All the other kids are going out trick-or-treating. You don't want to be that kid showing up to school without a Halloween costume on because they're having the, costume day at school for Halloween. You don't want to be the one not going out, gathering up the candy. And when you come back, well, how much candy did you get? Oh, how much did you get? Oh, I got a pillowcase full. How much did you get? Oh, I just filled up my little pumpkin. That's all you got. That's how the kids are. Valentine's Day. Oh, so and so's a nerd. Don't give him a Valentine's card. And then next thing you know, you got the one kid sitting there without a Valentine's cards in his hand, and all the other kids got Valentines in their hands. That's how the society is set up. Okay. And then what does that do? That follows into adulthood, as it has here. In adulthood, it says the things that make people envious change throughout their lifetime. Studies have shown that the younger the person, the more likely they are to be envious of others. Adults under the age of 30 are more likely to experience envy compared to those 30 years and older. However, what people become envious over differs across adulthood. Young adults under the age of 30 have been found to envy others' social status, relationships, and attractiveness. Typically, at this point in life, the person begins to accept who they are as an individual and compare themselves to others less often. However, they still envy others. Um, I would say that that's changed because when you look at society today, a 40, 50, 60-year-old man or woman today is not like the 40, 50, or 60-year-old woman or man from 30, 40 years ago. All right. I can remember when my grandfather was my age, my grandfather was grandpa. You know what I mean? He walked with a limp. His health was failing. Um, he looked way much older. You know what I mean? Even though he shaved, which we know we're not supposed to do it. That's what we were taught. He worked for the post office. He was grandpa. He looked like a grandfather. He acted like a grandfather. When you thought of a grandfather, that's what you said. But now you look at men 40, 50, 60 years old today, they don't look like what you would typically back in our day think of what a grandfather is. You see some of these men still walking around buffed out. You know what I mean? They're still in the gym working out, still working. You would, what they call it today, like the 60-year-old today is basically what a 30-year-old was back 30, 40 years ago. All right. So things have kind of changed. That spirit of envy is still on people at 30, 40, 50, 60 years old in today's society. It's changed. It's gotten worse. Okay, because marketing has changed. Um, what do you call it? Sports medicine has changed, where there are more supplements around now today that actually work to build muscle legally than what there were back then. All right. You have a lot of people in their 40s, 50s, 60s taking creatine. There's a push in society that creatine is healthy for you all of a sudden. I remember 25, 30 years ago when creatine was just starting to, really show up on the scene. There were studies coming out about the side effects of creatine, that it wasn't good for you. But now all of a sudden there's this big change. There's this switch that now all of a sudden they're trying to tell people 50, 40, 50, 60 years old to take creatine. Like, oh, it'll help you. It's good for you. And it's like, no. I remember the reports of back then that creatine messed with your liver, it messed with your intestines. You know what I mean? It did things to you. It made the muscles retain water. The water retention in your muscles um, became, overly, like way extreme from the creatine. It wasn't actually building muscle. It was just keeping, the water retention under the muscles to make the muscles look more bulky. It wasn't really actually building muscle. Okay. But now all of a sudden, the whole outlook has changed. Why is that? If people knew the truth, they wouldn't be buying it. Now you've got women taking it. It's crazy that nowadays you have women walking around more buffed out than your average man now. It's crazy to see a lot of these women walking around just, their shoulders and their wingspan and everything looks like a man's from being in the gym. And it's like, I know what you're taking. You didn't get like that naturally. You weren't naturally built like that. You're taking something. You're taking stuff. All right. And you're looking at all of these so-called fitness influencers online that are dying at early ages in their 20s and 30s. You're having a lot of the what do you call it? The bodybuilders from the 90s and 2000s that are dying at early ages, dying at 40, 50 years old from all kind of heart problems and stuff like that. All due to what? All the steroids and everything that they're taking. Okay. So all of this stuff, these companies are allowed to lie to people, to market these products to people, knowing that these products can harm you, but they don't care. They don't care. All right. Um, Let me go back to this. As adults under the age of 30 are more likely to experience envy compared to those 30 years and older. However, what people become envious over differs across adulthood. Younger adults under the age of 30 have been found to envy other social status, relationships, and attractiveness. Typically, at this point in life, the person begins to accept who they are as an individual and compare themselves to others less often. However, they still envy others, just over different aspects in life, such as career or salary. Studies have shown a decrease in envy as a person ages. However, envious feelings over money was the only thing that consistently increased as a person got older. As a person ages, they begin to accept their social status. On some occasions, the individual does not and can, over time, form severe mental issues. All right. So, you want to keep that in mind, that people can become so consumed with envy that, they could just start thinking crazy things and start doing crazy things. All right. Okay. So, we want to keep that in mind. All right. Let's go to back to the scriptures. Let me stop sharing this and go back. Your screen, window. Are you able to hear me? Because I'll keep getting this thing saying that my browser's lost connection with my mic.
No, we could hear you.
All right. I don't know why that keeps popping up. All right. So let's go to 1 John 5 and 17. Oh, I forgot to change it. Now we were at Wisdom of Solomon 6 and 22 to 23. Now 1 John 5 and 17.
The book of First John, chapter 5 and verse 17. All unrighteousness is sin, and there is a sin not unto death.
All right. So the scriptures, again, we've gone over this. The scriptures tells us that all unrighteousness is sin, and there is a sin not unto death. All right. So what is sin according to the Bible? We already got it. Grab it again. 1 John 3 and 4.
The book of First John, chapter 3 and verse 4. Whosoever committed sin transgressed also the law, for sin is the transgression of the law.
All right. So the Bible clearly states what sin is. Let's go to Tobit 4 and 5. Book of Tobit 4 and 5.
The book of Tobit, chapter 4 and verse 5. My son, be mindful of the Lord our God all thy days, and let not thy will be set to sin, or transgress his commandments. Do uprightly all thy life long, and follow not the ways of unrighteousness.
And follow not the ways of unrighteousness. So we're being told, let our will not be set to sin and follow not the ways of unrighteousness. Okay. Go to 1 John 3, and you're going to read verse 7.
The book of First John, chapter 3 and verse 7. Little children, let no man deceive you. He that doeth righteousness is righteous, even as he is righteous.
Actually, read through verse 10, 7 through 10. Start again at 7.
Verse 7. Little children, let no man deceive you. He that doeth righteousness is righteous, even as he is righteous. He that committed sin is of the devil, for the devil sinneth from the beginning. For this purpose the Son of God was manifested, that he might destroy the works of the devil. Um, Whosoever is born of God does not commit sin, for his seed remaineth in him, and he cannot sin because he is born of God. In this the children of God are manifest, and the children of the devil. Whosoever doeth not righteousness is not of God, neither he that loveth not his brother.
All right. So we're bringing this out to point out to you that all unrighteousness is sin, number one. And he's going on to tell us that the person that does righteousness, that's a person that's righteous, even as who is righteous? Christ is righteous. But it goes on to let us know in verse 8 that he that committed sin is of the devil. All right. For the devil sinned from the beginning. For this purpose, the Son of God was manifested that he might destroy the works of the devil. That's very heavy because a lot of our people don't understand it. They don't grasp that, especially those that are in the Christian church because they're not being taught. As it says in verse 9, whosoever is born of God does not commit sin, for his seed remaineth in him, and he cannot sin because he is born of God. In this, the children of God are manifest and the children of the devil. So that's what determines, are you a child of God or are you a child of the devil? And that clearly is going to you Israelites, you so-called blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans, not talking about everybody. The laws, the commandments weren't given to everybody. They were given to the Israelites, the children of Israel. So the whosoever it's talking about is talking about the children of Israel. Okay, don't get it twisted. Whosoever is born of God does not commit sin, for his seed remaineth in him, and he cannot sin because he is born of God. In this, the children of God are manifest, and the children of the devil. Whosoever doeth not righteousness is not of God, neither he that loveth not his brother. All right. So, you Israelites, you so called blacks, Hispanics, Native Americans, if you're not keeping the commandments, you're not doing righteousness, the Bible's telling you you're not of God. We've got to stop deceiving ourselves. All right. And it says, neither he that loveth not his brother. Okay. The God of this Bible clearly is only the God of the Israelites. It's not the God of everybody. Okay. Grab that in Joel 2 and 27. Just to prove it real quick so nobody can say, well, they're claiming that he's the only God of Israel and they have no proof. It's like, no, we got proof. It's in the Bible.
The book of Joel, chapter 2 and verse 27. And ye shall know that I am in the midst of Israel, and that I am the Lord your God, and none else, and my people shall never be ashamed.
And ye shall know that I am in the midst of Israel. Actually, let me go there. Let me hold on. I forgot to go to it. So nobody can't say they're, see, they're making it up. Right here, Joel chapter 2 and verse 27. You can see it for yourself. And ye shall know that I am in the midst of Israel, and that I am the Lord your God, and none else. And my people shall never be ashamed. See, now you've got Christians trying to go out and try and twist it because they know that what the Israelites are teaching is the truth. So to keep our people dumb and continuing to follow blue-eyed Jesus, now they're trying to twist it. All
Right.
right. My mind just went blank. Um, it just went blank. Where is it at? Therefore, I shall punish you for your iniquities.
Uh,
Is
who's,
that?
who,
I don't know why it was in
Amos,
my head. Huh?
Amos,
Amos 3-1. There you
Amos
go.
3.
Amos. There we
Yeah,
go. 3. Thank you. It was in my
Amos,
head. Just popped out.
right. Yeah, that happened. Amos 3 and 1. Hear this word that the Lord has spoken against you, O children of Israel, against the whole family which I brought up from the land of Egypt, saying, you only have I known of all the families of the earth. Therefore, I will punish you for all your iniquities.
All right. So these two scriptures right here, we've got to constantly keep bringing out to our people to make them understand that you've been lied to, that the God of this Bible is not the God of everybody. It's stated clearly in the scriptures. We just read two of them to you. He is only the God of the Israelites. I am the Lord your God. Okay. All throughout the scriptures, it's repeated over and over again. I am the Lord your God. The Lord your God, your God, your God. And right here in Amos 3 and 2, he's saying, you only have I known of all the families of the earth. Families of the earth is talking about what? The nations. Of all the nations of the earth, the only people he knows is the Israelites. Therefore, I will punish you for all your iniquities. The only people getting punished for their sins are the Israelites, you so-called blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans. Why? Because we continually break the commandments. The commandments were only given to us, and we continually break them. That's why we're being punished. That's why we're in. You know how sad it is to try to explain to friends and family members about this truth, and that we're in captivity and they can't even fathom the fact that we're still in slavery. They can't
Right.
even, it's like foreign to them. They can't, like, no, we're not in slavery anymore. It's like, what are you talking about? Have we ever been taken back to our land where they brought us from, put us back in the land, restored everything they stole from us, and said, hey, you know what? We apologize. We're sorry. We stole you guys off the west coast of Africa, but in reality, you guys belong in the land of Israel. This is really your land. We're going to give it back to you. We're going to give you back your heritage. This Bible belongs to you. Have they've never done that. We're still here in a land that they stole us to. We're still in captivity. Yeah, you may be able to get on an airplane and get a passport and fly to another nation and go and visit, and but we're still in captivity. We're not back in our own land. It's so weird trying to explain it to our people and they don't get it, because the concept of freedom, all right, they believe that we're free and we're not. It's an illusion. The illusion of inclusion, that's what it's called. All right, let's go to Wisdom of Solomon 1 and 5.
The book, The Wisdom of Solomon, chapter 1 and verse 5. For the Holy Spirit of discipline will flee deceit and remove from thoughts that are without understanding, and will not abide when unrighteousness cometh in.
All right, so we've been bringing this out with each class that we've done, dealing with all unrighteousness. All right, we were talking about discipline earlier. All right, so it's telling us, for the Holy Spirit of discipline will flee deceit and remove from thoughts that are without understanding. It will not abide when unrighteousness cometh in. So if you're taking your self-examination and you have that spirit of envy on you, and you're telling yourself that, no, I don't have it, you're lying to yourself. right? You're being deceitful to yourself, not only to the Most High, but you're being deceitful. You're deceiving yourself. All right. So we've got to be aware that being self-aware plays a big part in this walk. Okay. Let's go to Sirach 17:14.
Sirach 7:14.
17:14.
17:14. The book of Ecclesiastes, chapter 17 and verse 14. And he said unto them, beware of all unrighteousness. And he gave every man commandments concerning his neighbor.
All right. So again, we're being warned about all unrighteousness. He said unto them, beware of all unrighteousness. And he gave every man commandment concerning his neighbor. So he warned us about unrighteousness. He warned us about having these different spirits on us, like the spirit of envy. He gave us his laws and commandments for us to know how to conduct ourselves amongst each other, that we're not supposed to have that envy, that envious spirit upon us, and envy our neighbors, envy our fellow Israelites. Especially, we're not supposed to envy the other nations. Um, it was at the top of my tongue when we look at envy thou not the oppression, the oppressed. You remember that where that's at? Envy thou not
No.
in Proverbs. Envy thou not. And Proverbs 3:31.
The book of Proverbs, chapter 3 and verse 31. Envy thou not the oppressor, and choose none of his ways.
So we're told not to envy the other nations, especially our oppressors, and not to choose none of their ways. But unfortunately, in society, in American society, we as captors, you so-called Blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans, we're being forced to assimilate into American society, which is really what is white society. We have to, if we want to get a job, we've got to dress like them. We've got to talk like them. Everything that we do, we've got to do it in a way that's pleasing to them in order for us to be able to maneuver ourselves around the society. In fact, there's a YouTube video that popped up just the other day where a lady went to apply for a job, and the HR manager sent her back. It was like a basically like a racist return email about
Hmm.
her. You know what I'm talking about? Yeah, you haven't
No.
seen. Let me see if I can find it real quick. Um, Response from HR. Go to YouTube. What's going on here? Oh, no. All right. All right, here we go. I found it. Let me stop sharing this. And this is showing how things are going backwards for our people and getting worse. Because now, a lot of these people are emboldened.
Don't write anything down after conversations.
This is Pocket. I never go anywhere without it. At the tap of a button, it records and creates organized notes based on your conversations. I use it at work,
You hear me?
at the doctor's, and
Yes.
when I'm out and about. I could use an app, but
Can you hear it, Ezra?
it's
I can hear both you and the audio.
Yes.
Pocket does things no other app can do.
Yep.
Hello.
Both of you.
Snap it to the back of my phone because no one wants to be that.
Can you hear it? You can hear it?
Yes.
Okay. All right. It
Can
must
you hear
be a
me?
delay then, yeah, I can hear you fine. I think I must have a delay. All right, let me play it. Let me skip.
What if I told you that a black applicant is sent an email called a racial slur by HR? It's a hell of a thing. Here it is.
Story time. I usually don't do this, but I actually have time today. I had an interview this morning with a company called Nexus, and I just want you guys to know that this company is so disrespectful and blatantly racist. Interview was scheduled for 11 a.m. I had to move some things around, but I logged on right at 11. The person interviewing me logged on at about 11:02, didn't have their camera on, and as soon as we got on, was like, hey, sorry, I'm actually away from the office right now. Is there any way that we can move your interview an hour? I was like, oh, hey, so sorry. I actually have to pick up my kids in an hour. Like, this was the only time today that worked for me. I'm like, what about later in the week? And he's like, oh, yeah, like maybe tomorrow. Like, what's your availability tomorrow? I checked my schedule and I actually didn't even really have availability tomorrow, to be honest. I was like, you know what? Don't worry about it. Like, I'll reschedule on the Calendly link. Like, don't worry about it. Thanks so much. Look at the email that the HR manager for this company just sent me. How disheartening as a Black woman looking for a job is it that companies are still so blatantly disrespectful, and the HR manager for this.
You see what he wrote? Says, don't waste our time again. Dear chimp, you showed up to the interview just to say you're not interested? What a clown. Impressive waste of everyone's time. Next time you feel like playing these games, don't. Never reach out to us again, ever. No regards. That's crazy.
This company just sent me. How disheartening as a Black woman looking for a job is it that companies are still so blatantly disrespectful and so racist?
Yeah, put it up full mass. Here we go. Black applicant called a racial slur by an HR manager's allegation. Allison Mathis Jones posted on TikTok the message she allegedly received from an HR manager from the company Nexus that read, quote, "Dear chimp." Yes, dear chimp. You show up to the interview just to say you're not interested. What a clown. Impressive waste of everyone's time. Next time you feel like playing these games, don't. Never reach out to us again. Ever. No regards. If HR will talk to potential job applicants in such a way, can you imagine a day at the office of? Now, keep in mind, they can utilize this. I'm talking about people that work there. They can utilize this as evidence of a hostile work environment. One would assume in the judicial context, if you're weighing evidence, the value of that evidence would definitely concur with a hostile work environment claim. I'm just putting that out there. That's a circumstantial dynamic. Okay, so the company which teaches how to use AI was tagged many times on social media, but the Instagram page has now been taken down. Let's put up the CEO. The CEO, his name is Ethan Carter. As of this report, there has not been any statements made by the company or by Ethan regarding these allegations. Ethan, I highly recommend, sir, that you make a response happen as soon as you can. And hopefully your response will at least acknowledge, if true, the situation that has been presented.
All right. So you can see what's going on. You know what I mean? We have to essentially assimilate into their society. And again, that comes down to what? Us having to envy them, emulate them, which we read about in the scriptures when you go to the Maccabees. Let me get back to the scriptures again, and we'll go there. But it's a shame, you know what I mean, that we have to go through this, but we shouldn't be surprised because we've been warned, you know what I mean? So Proverbs 3:31 again, envy thou not the oppressor and choose none of his ways. But this is what our people get for choosing to want to celebrate their holidays. You know what I mean? We want to do everything like them rather than doing what the Lord told us to do. So what happens? This is what we got to deal with. You know what I mean? We want things to change. We have to change. We have to repent as a people. We got to come back to our God. We got to come back to our heritage. We got to start keeping our law, statutes, commandments, and judgments. All right. Go to First Maccabees. We're going to go to Second Maccabees 4. And we'll start at verse 12 and read down to verse 16.
Okay. The book of Second Maccabees, chapter 4 and verse 12. For he built gladly a place of exercise under the tower itself, and brought the chief young men under his subjection, and made them wear a hat. Now such was the height of Greek fashion and increase of heathenish manners through the exceeding profaneness of Jason. That is right? Profaneness?
Yeah, profaneness of Jason.
Profaneness of Jason, that ungodly wretched and no high priest, that the priest had no courage to serve any more at that altar, but despising the temple and neglecting the sacrifices, hastened to be partakers of the unlawful allowance in the place of exercise after the games of discus. Discus called them forth, not setting by the honors of their fathers, but liking the glory of the Grecians best of all, by reason whereof sore calamity came upon them, for they had them to be their enemies and avengers, whose custom they follow so earnestly, and unto whom they desire to be like in all things.
So think about that. All right. It says in verse 13, now such was the height of Greek fashions and increase of heathenish manners through the exceeding profaneness of Jason, that ungodly wretch and no high priest. So we're seeing the same thing again. The height of the fashion industry are their people. Again, you got to be wearing the $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 suit. You know what I mean? Well tailored, custom, nice shoes. Everything is about um, these brands that have the Italian names. You know what I mean? Whether it's purses or cars, German cars, German engineering. Everything is about being like them. And then it says that the priests had no courage to serve anymore at the altar, but despising the temple and neglecting the sacrifices, hastened to be partakers of the unlawful allowance in the place of exercise after the game of discus called them forth. When you go back, these were the Olympic Games, which they still have the event of discus in. All right. They had our people distracted through exercise. When you look at today's society here in America, that's how you know these are the same people. Nothing's changed. They're showing us every day who they are. Our people just need to wake up, read the scriptures, and understand that yes, these are the Edomites that the Bible speaks of. All right. They are the Romans and the Greeks. They're the same people. The Europeans, they're the same people. Just changed their names over the years. Names have just changed, but they're the same people, still living under the same customs. That's why when you look at all the monuments, all these Greek and Roman looking temples that they have, go look at Washington, D.C., and they've stolen even a lot of the Black culture. You see a lot of Egypt. Okay. Um, they've stolen a lot from our cultures and from the cultures of Ham. All right. Remember, we're not the same as the Hamites. But the culture that they're pushing today is the same culture they were pushing back then, keeping our people distracted through games, through exercise, football, baseball, basketball, soccer. What's going on right now? They keep talking about what do they call the soccer?
The World Cup.
Yeah, there you go. The World Cup, the big thing that goes on. I've never really been much into soccer, but I guess at the World Cup they just finished having the NBA playoffs just finished. All of this stuff is a distraction to our people, all of it, and it's all based upon what? Envy, 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 envy. In order for us to win that world championship, we got to take you down. In order for us to win that world championship, we got to be better than you. Right now, they're the champions. We got to be like them. In order for us to win the championship, in order for us to beat them, we got to be just like them. We got to be better. It's all based upon envy. This entire society. Envy drives this entire society. And it's funny because I pointed out again to my wife, when you're watching videos on YouTube, you're watching TV shows, and there's a lot of commercials now that just pop up, commercial after commercial after commercial after commercial. They say they hate us. They don't like our music, supposedly. But have you noticed how almost every commercial now is using songs like old hip hop songs from the 70s and 80s? And it's like, okay, they control the masters of all these old rappers and hip hop stars from back in the day. It's a shame that none of them don't own their songs. They don't own their music. And now it's being put into all these commercials, but you're seeing it more and more and hearing it more and more now. All right. There was just commercial after commercial. My wife was looking at me like I was crazy. I was like, wait a minute. That's so-and-so from back in, you know what I mean? One commercial, they were playing Juicy. The beat from the song Juicy. Doom, do 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 the Biggie sampled. All right. Just watch the commercials. And the other thing I pointed out to her, all the commercials, they're what? Hip hop dancing. Almost every single one of them. You got old white people, young white people, old Asian people, young Asian people, all, breaking out dancing. And I'm like, and you see how they take the one little black one and stick them in the back, trying to make it look like they're the ones that came up with all of this. There's another one that popped up. It was all Korean dudes, hip hop dancing. I can't remember what commercial it was for, but they were doing their thing. They would look like our people dancing, but Koreans. And I'm like, you see what they're doing? Basically, they used us to teach them to dance like us, sing like us, rap like us. And now they have no more use for us. I'm serious. You notice that you don't see very many rap artists being signed to these labels anymore. It's dead. You know what I mean? You hardly, honestly, when was the last time in the last, I want to say 5 years, maybe even 10, that a black artist has come out and has been one of the top artists that everybody's talking about? Think about that. All you keep hearing about is Taylor Swift, all the other ones. But I can't think of not one new black or even Hispanic artist that have popped up on the scene whose music is being played over and over and over again on the radio. Haven't heard it. It's been a while. All right. That's been winning a bunch of Grammy Awards, a bunch of American Music Awards. Haven't been happening. All right. We've basically socialized them into our ways, which they've stolen, and now they're rebrandishing it, repackaging it as if they're the ones that came up with this stuff. All right. Look at the TikTok influencers. How many of these young so-called black TikTok dancers are complaining about their dances being stolen? In fact, see, another one just popped in my head. Have you seen the one dude on YouTube, Ezra, the brother that comes out? He works out. He does a lot of calisthenics, and it's basically a term that comes from the jails back in the day, where the dudes back in the jails, when they would come out of jail, they didn't have names for their exercises that they would do, and they would be trying to teach you, all right, these different calisthenics exercises. And you're like, oh man, you want to get these? Because they didn't know anatomy. They were just like, you want to get these? you know what, do these. And there's a brother that's on YouTube. He pops up all the time, and you're like, oh, you want to get these? Then do these. And he, showing his calisthenics, showing his exercises, and he's gotten quite popular. Okay, his videos.
Yeah, I
The other
haven't
day,
seen them.
you haven't seen. I'll see if I can find his videos. The other day, a commercial pops up of an Edomite. The commercial, he's like some kind of flex thing that to use to, I guess, build muscle in the forearms and the chest or something that he's claiming. And he pops up and he's like, you want to get these? Then do these. And I'm like, you got to be kidding me. Like, you really have to be kidding. Now they got this Edomite dude on here trying to, it was funny. I had to laugh about it, but at the same time, it was just like, man, here we go. Where is it at? YouTube. Let me see if I can find his video real quick. I can't even remember his name. Yeah, I think this is him right here. Let me share screen.
Do these at least 30 seconds to 1 minute for
So he's got
35
a lot of
cents.
short videos. He got a longer video. He pops up just out of the blue. He'll just pop up.
Do these.
Like, you want these? Then do these.
At least for 30 seconds to 1 minute. You don't need to go fast. Nice and slow is the fastest way to grow. You want these? Do these.
All right. So it's just funny, like I said, because he's been popping up.
What's the best morning exercise?
For
You want these?
for a while, and I know he's got a big following. But it was just funny to see this Edomite kid pop up and and basically stealing his well, what do you want to call it? Well, what can you call it? I know it's his way of doing things, but I can't think of the term right now. But that's what they do. You know what I mean? He's been the only one on here basically talking like that, teaching like that in his videos. And like I said, he's got a lot of videos and he's got a pretty big following. And you got Edomite, this Edomite stealing his, I can't even think of the term to use, but whatever term you want to use, he's stealing it. All right. Let me go back to here. All right. So going back again where it says, okay, but despising the temple, neglecting the sacrifice, and hasten to be partakers of the unlawful allowance in the place of exercise after the game of discus called them forth. All right. So you can see they have our people distracted with exercise and working out and playing, and being caught. The truth. The Grecians, best of all. That's heavy. Not setting by the honors of their fathers, but liking the glory of the Grecians best of all. So when we try and go to these athletes and teach them the truth, they don't want to hear it. You're trying to teach them that this emulation and all this stuff that they're doing, wanting to be like their oppressors, and they don't want to hear the truth because they're distracted, especially the ones at the professional level. They're making so much money, the money becomes a distraction. I'm telling you, all these videos pop up. There was a video of Charles Barkley that popped up recently. Basically, him trying to say that there's no racism. And it was like, what? Like, what in the world are you talking about? But that's what happens with these guys. You know what I mean? That in order for them to keep that seat at the table, they got to pretend like, you know what I mean, that these things are not plaguing our people. Even another one that popped up again, I think, was that today, this morning, when I was getting a lesson together. A news article popped up talking about Jay-Z. While our people are trying to boycott Target, Jay-Z's going to Target and trying to make money by partnering up with Target. You know what I mean? This is what our people continually had to deal with, even back then. If you go to even First Maccabees, right here in Maccabees 1 verse 11, said, in those days went there out of Israel wicked men who persuaded many, saying, let us go and make a covenant with the heathen that are round about us. For since we departed from them, we have had much sorrow. All right. So this device pleased them well. Then certain of the people were so forward herein that they went to the king, who gave them license to do after the ordinances of the heathen. Whereupon they built a place of exercise at Jerusalem, according to the customs of the heathen, and made themselves uncircumcised, and forsook the holy covenant, and joined themselves to the heathen, and were sold to do mischief. All right. So a lot of our people, are doing that even today. All right. Do you have your Apocrypha right there?
Yep. Mhm.
Oh, I found it. Never mind. I was going to see if you could look at. All right. Well, let's go to First Maccabees 11 and 21 real quick. And here's another one. It says, then came ungodly persons who hated their own people, went unto the king and told him that Jonathan besieged the tower. We find that a lot in Israel, that there are a lot of our people in the so-called Black and Hispanic communities that hate their own people, that will go to our enemies out of envy of our enemies, and will turn their backs on their own people and turn you in. There's a lot of our people, even today. There's a lot of the same thing going on today. A lot of our ungodly people who have hatred for their own people that are joining together with MAGA and all kinds of crazy stuff like this. All right. And what does it come back to? Envy of the oppressor. That's what it comes down to. All right. Let's go to the book of Romans. We go to Romans 1 and go ahead and read 25 through 31.
The book of Romans, chapter 1 and 25.
Yeah, 25 to 31.
Who changed the truth of God into a lie and worship and serve the creature more than the Creator, who is blessed forever. Amen. For this cause God gave them up unto vile affections, for even the woman did change the natural use into that which is against nature. And likewise also the men, leaving the natural use of the woman, burned in their lust one towards another, men with men, working that which is unseemly, and receiving in themselves that recompense of their error which was met. And even as they did not like to retain God in their knowledge, God gave them over to a reprobate mind to do these things which are not convenient, being filled with all unrighteousness, fornication, wickedness, covetousness, maliciousness, full of envy, murder, deceit, malignity, whisperers, backbiters, haters of God, despiteful, proud, boasters, inventors of evil things, disobedient to parents, without understanding, covetousness, breakers, without natural affection, implacable, unmerciful, who knowing the judgment of God, that they which committed such things are worthy of death, not only do the same, but have pleasure in them that do them.
All right. So we must understand that according to the scriptures, envy is sin. All right. The Bible also tells us that envy is not convenient. From what we're reading here, it says, and even as they did not like to retain God in their knowledge, God gave them over to a reprobate mind to do those things which are not convenient. So we're going to look up the word convenient, Brooke, so you get understanding of what it means when it's talking about things that are not convenient. I know I keep going back and forth. Man, my nose is stuffy. I don't know why. All right. Convenient. Fitting in well with a person's needs, activities, and plans. Suitable, appropriate, fitting, fit, suited. Involving little trouble or effort. Situated to as to allow easy access to. Occurring in a place or at a time that is useful. All right. Let's see what Merriam-Webster says. Convenient. Suited to personal comfort or to easy performance. Suited to a particular situation. Being near at hand. Suitable. Proper. All right. So envy, it's not suitable. It's not proper. Okay. And we go back to here. Can you still see it?
No.
Man, it went off. Hold on. All right. So fitting in well with a person's needs, activities, and plans. Envy is not convenient. It doesn't fit in with your needs. It doesn't fit in with your activities, your plans. It's not suitable. It's not appropriate. It's not fitting. It's not fit. It's not suited. All right. So we've got to be real careful when we allow ourselves to allow a sin like envy to consume us. All right. Basically, uh, envy is a waste of time. To allow yourself to be envious of others, what they have, what they've attained, um, what they look like, any of that, anything that they may have that you may become envious of is a waste of your time and a waste of your energy. All right. We have to teach our people so that they could fully understand this, especially in American society, because again, American society is built upon envy. All right. We have to remember, what does envy do? Envy damages your relationships. We've just seen that envy is a distraction. All right. Especially like we just talked about, like with sports, all the exercise. All right. When it comes to fashion, all of it, it's all a distraction. Kids aren't getting an education at school because they're distracted by envy. They're more worried about going to school so that they can put on a fashion show. It's more of a social atmosphere, more social time than anything. Kids are going to school more for the social aspect of it, more than actual learning. All right. Envy is a product of low self-esteem. That's not something else we've seen today with as we've been going through the lesson. Envy leads to resentment. We've talked about that earlier. All right. That resentment leads to hatred. That hatred leads to anger. That anger leads to violence. All right. There were several situations of the Bible I wanted to read, but for the sake of time, we'd be here all day to read through them. Go through and read, because there are a lot of instances in the scriptures that have to deal with envy. Okay, like with Cain and Abel. Why did Cain kill Abel? Out of envy. All right. With the story of Adam and Eve. How did Eve end up listening to this so-called serpent in the garden? How did Eve get to the point to where she didn't listen to the Lord? She didn't listen to her husband, that she ended up listening to this serpent in the garden. It was all due to envy. All right. Remember, the scripture tells us that due to envy of the devil, man, my nose is stuffing up. Go to Wisdom of Solomon 2:24. Actually,
The book of wisdom.
start at verse 22 and go through 24. Wisdom of Solomon 2:22 to 24.
The book of wisdom of Solomon, chapter 2 and verse 22. As for the mysteries of God, they know them not, neither hope they for the wages of righteousness, nor discern a reward for blameless souls. For God created man to be immortal and made him to be an image of his own in eternity. Nevertheless, through envy of the devil came death into the world, and they that do hold of his side do find it.
All right. So, nevertheless, through envy of the devil came death into the world. All right. So, the fall of Adam and Eve was all due to what? Due to envy. See, a lot of Christians don't even understand that. Okay. We've got to keep that in mind. All right. Um, you've got the story of Jacob and Esau. All right. Esau basically wanted to kill his brother. He hated his brother more for the aspect that he envied him. All right. It was partly because he felt that he got slighted, but it was more because of envy. All right. Read about that. Um, the story about Rachel and Leah, Jacob's wives. That whole situation was due to envy, with his two wives in competition with each other. Because that's another thing that envy breeds. Envy breeds competition. All right. It breeds that resentment. And that's one of the things that we point out in our lesson about multiple wives. We bring this up in that lesson about um, his two wives and his multiple wives situation. You have people today trying to bamboozle people into believing that multiple wives is, oh, everything goes great. But why do we keep finding out that no, it's not all gravy? These multiple wives situations are not working out the way they try and portray them to be. All right. It's working out for the men. They're getting as many women as they want. They're getting taken care of. They're getting the women's money. But when you look at the situation between Jacob's two wives, the same resentment, um, the same competition still goes on today in these marriages, the same as what was going on back then. That they envied each other and they were in competition to see who gave Jacob the most kids. All right. So go and read about that situation. You've got trying to name another one. King David and what's his name? Saul, King Saul and King David. When Saul became envious of King David because remember when the women were singing and they were talking about Saul getting his thousands and King David was getting his tens of thousands. Saul became angry because of that. Why? Because of envy. So there are a lot of situations in the scriptures that you can go to and read about. Read these situations and learn about how envy played a part in these relationships, these dynamics that they cause. All right. Also, even with Christ, Christ was accused. Christ got arrested. Christ got crucified due to what? Due to envy. We were going to read about that too. We would have read all of these. That's what I was planning on doing. Was like going through and reading each and every one. We'd be here all the way until 5, 6 o'clock tonight. All right. So when you get a chance, go and read these stories because there's several of them. There's many stories in the scriptures that deal with this very topic of envy. All right. We read earlier about standing before who could stand before envy. Even Christ couldn't stand before envy. All right. So the story with Christ and what he dealt with, we talked about it earlier. All right. I had planned on reading the whole thing, but just for the sake of time, when you get a chance, go read these stories for yourself. Read about it. Okay. But Christ, being in the midst of his people, found himself to be in a very dangerous situation. All because of what? It came down to envy. To these guys, grab Mark chapter 15, and I believe it may be like verse 9, 10, 11, somewhere around there. It talks about for he knew the chief priests had delivered him for envy or something like that. I think it's Mark 15. It's somewhere around there, 8, 9, 10, somewhere around there.
We're going to Romans.
No, Mark 15.
Mark 15 and the book of Mark.
Yeah, it's verse 10. For he knew that verse 10.
The book of Mark, chapter 15, and verse 10. And it says, "For he knew that the chief priests had delivered him for envy."
All right. So Pilate understood, okay, that they brought Christ in. It wasn't because he had done something wrong. It wasn't that he was wicked and evil, as they tried to portray him to be. He understood and he knew that the only reason they brought Christ in was due to envy, because they envied him, because so many of the people wanted to follow him and not follow them. And that's what we were talking about earlier with what we see going on in the Israelite community today. That same wicked, murderous, envious spirit is still upon many of the men in the Israelite community today. You see many of these men hating on certain leaders in Israel, certain leaders of camps and leaders of Israelite church groups. Not because they've done anything to them, not because they're wicked, not because anything they've done, but just the fact that they have a larger following, that their teachings are more prominent. Okay, they're a more prominent teacher. Okay, that envy is jumping on many of these. I'm telling you, I don't know what's going on with those. I'm getting all stuffy. All right. But they're letting that spirit of envy jump on them. And then next thing you know, they're here on YouTube cursing, calling them names, threatening, just crazy stuff. The same thing Christ went through. All right. And you see certain leaders of Israel going through that. All right. Based, from their peers who are basically acting like the chief priests. All right. Calling death on them, all kinds of crazy stuff. All right. So, let's go to Acts 3 and 19 through 26.
The book of
There's
Acts,
a
chapter
whole
3.
there's a whole lot more, but I'm just gonna end it because we'd be here all day, all day.
The book of Acts, chapter 3, and verse 19. "Repent ye therefore, and be converted, that your sins may be blotted out, when the time of refreshing shall come from the presence of the Lord. And he shall send Jesus Christ, which before was preached unto you, whom the heavens must receive until the time of resurrection of all things, which God had spoken by the mouth of all his holy prophets since the world began. For Moses truly said unto the fathers, A prophet shall the Lord your God raise up unto you of your brother like unto me. Him shall ye hear in all things, whatsoever he shall say unto you. And it shall come to pass that every soul which will not hear the prophet shall be destroyed from among the people. Yeah, and all the prophets from Samuel and those that follow after, as many as have spoken, have likewise foretold of these days. Ye are the children of the prophets and of the covenant which God made with our fathers, saying unto Abraham, And in thy seed shall all the kindreds of the earth be blessed. Unto you, first God, having raised up his son Jesus, sent him to bless you, in turning away every one of you from his iniquities."
So as it says, unto you first, God, having raised up his son Jesus, sent him to bless you and turning away every one of you from his iniquities. Just like we read in Amos 3 and 1, that he's going to punish you for all your iniquities. Who's the you? You Israelites. All right. Here it may be talking about Judah. All right. Who are the Jews? And then after that, it was going to go to who? To the Gentiles, which were, the northern kingdom. All right. Let's go to 2 Thessalonians 3, and you're going to read verses 1 through 5.
The book of Second Thessalonians, chapter 3, and verse 1. This is a true saying. If a man desires the office of a
2
bishop,
Thessalonians 3.
no,
2
hold on.
Thessalonians.
I see. Hold on. It went further than that. Thessalonians right here. Second Thessalonians. Here we go. No, since jumping me right back in 3. First Thessalonians chapter 2. Here it is. 3, 1 through 5. All right. Second Thessalonians chapter 3 and verse 1. Finally, brethren, pray for us that the word of the Lord may have free course and be glorified even as it is with you, and that we may be delivered from unreasonable and wicked men. For all men have not faith, but the Lord is faithful, who shall establish you and keep you from evil. And we have confidence in the Lord touching you, that ye both do and will do the things which we command you. And the Lord direct your heart into the love of God and into the patience waiting for Christ.
And into the patient waiting for Christ. Let's go to Ecclesiastes 12 and 13 through 14.
The book of Ecclesiastes, chapter 12 and verse 13. Let us hear the conclusion of the whole matter. Fear God and keep his commandments, for this is the whole duty of man. For God shall bring every work into judgment with every secret thing, whether it be good or whether it be evil.
And with that, we're going to say shalom. Most High Christ bless. Enjoy the rest of the Sabbath. And Lord willing, we will see you next Sabbath. Shalom.